Moving in here. Good afternoon, evening, and morning, wherever you are. This is Dear People of Earth. We have a live broadcast this evening with Kevin Day and 5x5 News, Mike Turber, And before we get going, I want to talk to you about Phenom, the app. If you go to phenom.earth /app, this app is basically a platform. Hold on, I got down a platform that allows you to take images of the sky. It allows you to have all kinds of interactions with each other while you are recording data, especially with UFOs, UAPs. I'm getting a message just blasting me here, so I've got to kind of stop this thing here real quick. Okay, we're good. So this evening, something happened. This was probably about a week or so ago, I have to say, gentlemen. I'm in a back and forth email string for a lot of people that are background players in this field. Pretty much anybody is on that. Anybody that does any type of research or journalism, big players, big names, all the names you would think, just kind of noodle back and forth on the background. And most of this really isn't for dissemination. Some of it's talk about politics. Some of it is talk about technology. And others are talk about events that have happened. And Mike and Kevin were back and forth in the back, and I don't want to share those directly. That's nobody's business. That's a private conversation that happened in the background, and I believe that should be kept so. However, I did invite both of these gentlemen on. Obviously, Kevin was a Top Gun radar operator for the Nimitz encounter. You've heard him on my show before. We've had him on and had a long discussion with him. And Mike is a gentleman that is with 5x5 News and stated that he had been doing quite a bit of research in the background, years of research in the background. And I'm going to let these gentlemen speak for themselves, but there was certainly some back and forth, and Kevin has always been outspoken and honest about wanting to know what it is that he saw, what happened out there for the Nimitz encounter. And he's always been open to really any explanation, whether it's NHI, UFO, UAP, to something that was being done against or maybe during his operation. Which is highly illegal. It's not supposed to occur anytime that they are doing dual operations in wherever they're operating. They're supposed to know about that because there's a lot of aircraft safety, and people die when mistakes like that happen. So it's not a little thing that if something like this was occurring. So that's why I invited both of these gentlemen on so that they can speak. So Mike brought up the challenge first, so I'm going to let him be introduced. If you could, Mike, just give a small introduction, and then we'll pass it over to Kevin to do an introduction, and then we'll get into, Mike, some of the discussion and evidence that you have, that you've gathered, that you'd like to present. Sure. And we'll allow people to have some chats come through as well. I'm going to, over here on my right side, I don't know how much of these I'll be able to see because this technology doesn't always work perfectly, but I'll do the best I can. So if people have comments, whether you're on YouTube or if you are on Twitter, you can do your best I'll do my best to see these messages come through. And if they work, we'll pop them up on screen and we'll be able to have some real-time discussion. But so right now I'm going to stop the sharing of that app. And Mike, I'm going to let you introduce yourself and take it over for a couple minutes. To you, sir.
Okay, well, as stated, my name is Mike Turber. I own 5x5 News. As an independent investigative journalist, I also have my side job to that, which is actually my primary job, is that I'm hired by attorneys, I'm hired by organizations or firms, basically to come in and look at situations that they have and do my analysis of it. I'm a jack of all trades in those areas. For about 33 years or 35, I keep saying 33 years, been saying that for 2 years, so about 35 years now. I've been doing a lot of video type forensics, physical type forensics on like signatures and things like that, going back and forth with different organizations and working with them to get answers to questions for the victims. Every time I work for an attorney, I always work for the victim side to make certain that they get their stuff that they need. Most of my work, almost 90% of it, is volunteer, so I don't charge anybody anything. So I don't, I'm not going around trying to make a, boatload of money on that. But the other thing I've done in the last 5 or 6 years that's really sprung me forward in this area, back during the incident, or not the incident, but when the news came out, I think it was December 16th or so, when that New York Times article hit. I was in the middle of the Las Vegas shooting investigation. I was the lead independent investigator for that. I worked with all 65 different attorneys, and basically got them the information they were asking for that they couldn't get any other way. One of those questions is like, how did you get, the weapons up into the room, and, various things like that. So when this story broke out, I was intrigued. It was absolutely, it just grabbed my attention. I've always been interested in UFOs. I've always been interested in space. I'm an amateur astronomer. I'm an astrophotographer. And so all of my life has been around dealing in kind of like the technical side of things with computers. I work on the technical side of that. As far as, my actual job function, like with Discovery ID, I'm a director of photography for that. Everybody's seen Tiger King, and you probably saw the Joe Exotic series after that. So I was the director of photography for that. And that kind of gets me into an area where I'm always dealing with optics. I'm always dealing with computers. I'm dealing with perception. I'm dealing with parallax. I'm dealing with all the things that we've all heard. We've all heard these terms. I deal with it all the time. So I'm used to seeing it. And anyway, so here we are today. And Kevin Day, in my opinion, offers, and I've told Kevin this several times, my opinion is that Kevin Day's information and testimony in this case is perhaps the most important of all of them, of everything that I've seen, because he had control of the whole area, and the safety is his main concern. And he's, basically had a lot of people say some mean things, and that's not cool. And a lot of people saying some good things. And I think everybody should applaud him. He's a hero for what he's done and for what he's doing, and also for pushing this forward and trying to get answers. And I applaud that. Anyone that's looking for the truth, no matter what it is, as long as it's true. No one wants to go follow some false anything. And so that's what I'm going to try to help with. So we'll see what we come up with today. More information is coming, and then I'll put in the package of a documentary, like I told you before, that'll come out sometime in mid-April to May, somewhere in there, as soon as I get the insurance done.
Very good. And Kevin, if you could, I see that beautiful cat there that you've got there. It looks awesome.
Hey, you guys, you got to know, cats and dogs seem to like me a lot. I'm not sure why.
When I was a kid, I actually thought cats were the girls and dogs were the boys.
Me too. I call them girls and boys, and I don't even care. I love them all. Hey, Mike, and I got to apologize. And everyone has to understand the thread that we work in. Steve was right. It's the who's who of who's who around the world, quantum physicists to newspaper. I mean, you name it. There's what, Steve, over 100 folks in that room?
Oh, God, yeah. Easily. I mean, every name you could possibly think of.
Yeah, well, and I don't really want to drop any right now, but
yeah, I don't either.
Just to be in that room is astonishing to me. How in the hell did I ever get on that thread? It blows me away. I don't get it. But a lot of
people they question me personally. They're like, "You don't have any contacts." I'm like, "Well, if you only knew." You only know, but that's okay.
Let them read it over your shoulder. Don't forward it anywhere.
Oh, they'll fall over if they see some of the stuff we go back.
Yeah. But anyway, folks have to understand that it's kind of no holds barred, right? Right, you guys? Am I wrong? I mean, you hear some.
No, you're right.
Yeah, and they're usually arguing about physics of all things and stuff like that, and they get in some pretty heated debates. So when I heard this, every once in a while, this theory about it's a test resurfaces every so often, right. And it's usually, well, not always, but it tends to be the same points made over and over and over. And so when I heard it brought up again, I mistakenly thought that the source had come from Mike, and I probably overreacted a little bit because I'm tired of hearing some of this stuff. Because it just, and I have an open mind. If it turns out that I'm wrong, I'm fine with that. At least I have an answer. And that's what I'm after. My job in the Navy was to ID everything that flew in the sky. So people didn't get killed that aren't supposed to.
Right.
Yeah.
Believe me, I know. I was on board a ship, and I'm going to get emotional. 1988, my first deployment. Standing this far from the captain, as far as I am from this computer. When he reached up, turned the key, killed 296 people on a civilian airliner. That was my first deployment, gentlemen. On USS Vincennes, Captain Rogers in command. Misid'd, or we'll never know. There really was an F-14 behind that thing getting ready to shoot us with an Exocet missile. We don't know. Because it happened to the USS Stark a year before.
Yeah.
I was not involved. I was standing in the navigation watch. My first deployment, I didn't know jack shit about air defense. I'm sure I was a smart kid, aced my school and all that. That's how I got on the ship. It was my first deployment. Come on, man. And so when this happened on my last deployment, last time on a ship ever, it kind of got my attention. And just, you've heard this story 1,000 times. I mean, you go up into combat, these things are coming from outer space. Sure, it could have been a NASA drone launch at that point. So what do? I immediately go over to all my documentation, noticed airmen, because it's a publication I can look up. Hey, is there another scheduled tester on top of mine? I didn't hear about it. There was a screw up. Fine, we'll cancel ours and find out what the hell's going on so we don't kill people.
Right.
Break stuff. Nothing listed. And the idea was, the assessment was they're not hostile. It's some test going on. And so we put them on our data links, reporting it back to the beach. If anyone wanted to know about it, it was there. Until the day I was going to launch aircraft. That same piece of sky. They came down there going through my operation area, one at a time, about 100 knots, 28,000 feet, right through my playground, right over the top of us. And I said, oh, this ain't happening on my watch. Nope. Captain Smith comes down to the combat and said, hey, sir, tracking these all, several days now. I have no idea what they are. We have to intercept. You and I are going to get in trouble, sir, if we don't. He said, roger that, Senior Chief, intercept VID. We did. Commander Fravor launches, fast Eagle flight, bam. Right in front of him, drops down to the ocean, dogfight on the surface of the ocean. The theory is it's a surface submarine with a balloon. He popped it. That's why it disappeared, and we'll get back to that in a minute. From his words, that thing disappeared right in front of him. My air controller, and I just talked to him today, by the way, and I won't drop his name in case he's listening. No fear there, brother. I won't do that. No way. You have to kill me first. Right there. I'm the guy. I'm taking notes, right? This is my exercise. It's my job to watch everybody, write an after action report, lessons learned. These guys are going on deployment. Ship gets back to port. I'm transferring to go to a new job. I'm listening on the headset. Commander Fravor's fast Eagle flight gets on the radio, says, oh my God, I'm engaged. Now, if that was a balloon, why would he be screaming? This guy was a Top Gun instructor. All right. Thousands of hours in his logbook. Some like 6,000 hours or something crazy. That's unheard of.
Kevin, when you say engaged, does that mean that something got target lock on him?
No.
Okay.
It's a word that we use. It's a pro word that we use to tell everyone he's in a dogfight. Essentially, he's in the merge, and my job is to say the hell off the radio at that point. He's got it right. Okay, let him do it. And my air controller gets on. And he says, and he broke protocol. We normally don't talk to this way on the radio, but we're all in such shock. He says, sir, you're not going to believe this, but that thing is now at your cap station. Now check this out, gentlemen and ladies, if you're listening. In strike group air defense, let's say this non-alcohol beverage right here is the aircraft carrier, right? And over here somewhere, I've got all the notional threat. Well, I put up cap stations right here to protect on these things coming at us, so we're ready to defend, right? And I think that day we had 6 set up on that particular I mean, we can have different numbers on different days and stuff, of course. That thing went to Fast Eagle's assigned cap station and not close to it, exactly on it, latitude, longitude, and altitude. Now, if that was a NASA drone, that we got some pretty nifty stuff, I'd have to say. Wouldn't you?
I would agree.
Okay, well, let me get back to the other point about the balloon, okay? And that's why I got upset. This is the point. If that's true, I am one hot tamale. And even now, it upsets me beyond belief. I'm ready to go to court over it. My main job was safety. Now, if someone, now if it was an accident, you know, why didn't they come out and say that 20 years ago and instead of letting this thing metastasize and let it do all this to certain people? You think I'm the only one that was affected by this? Nope. Others just haven't come out. This is much deeper than you think. So if this really was a test, someone's in trouble for not spilling the beans that way too. Now, if someone just screwed up and there was I don't see how it's possible though. You're talking about you're telling me that a Top Gun pilot, 6,000 hours in his logbook, can't distinguish a surface submarine? How many surface submarines has that cat seen over his career? Come on. He's probably even rode them before. I don't know. It wouldn't surprise me a bit. And then to pop it and not notice? Oh man, come on, guys. And then, okay, it's a balloon. Let's go with that theory. He pops it and he gets, okay, I'm getting some clearance here. He looks back down. Wouldn't there be debris in the water from a pop balloon?
Kevin, would you see any debris on your No, you wouldn't see that, right? Because that's surface. So if it's above the ocean, it's your domain. If it's sitting on the ocean, you're not seeing it.
I'm not looking on the air defense radar usually. No, I wouldn't be paying attention to it. Now, over on the surface side and the subsurface side of the house, we have all three houses or functions on the ship, of course, and maybe the lookouts on the bridge through the big eye binoculars, the bridge watchstanders. Yeah, I mean, it could have been visible. Yeah.
Okay,
but it was
so
quite,
Mike,
it was too far away though. It was too far away. Someone would have seen it.
How far away was the cap pointed? Oh, how far away?
Go ahead.
I'm
not saying it's
how far away were they from your group?
No, it was too far. It was no, I'm guessing here because it was a long time ago, and I didn't have. This is one of the things I went up, and there's another thing. You know, in order to make the point, I have to answer the question. The next morning, I went up to the Combat Information Center, CIC. I was going to write a message detailing this whole thing. I sat down at the computer because I needed details like you're talking about right now.
Right.
You know, speeds, altitudes, and the whole 9 yards. I can write a technical message. So the exact distance that the intercept happened, I'm not real clear anymore, but it was over the horizon. No, I wouldn't have been able to see it on spy radar. No, it was over the radar horizon. Yeah.
All right.
So
Mike, this whole conversation came into effect because you had been doing some work on the back, specifically related to what this could possibly be. So if you wouldn't mind, kind of take us through the steps of where you began with this, what kind of put it on the radar for you, and maybe cite how you came to some of your conclusions. I know that there's an awful lot to unpack there, but if you could just start us down that pathway and see where we got, how we got to this point.
The truth might be a combination of the two here. So Mike's probably got some important stuff to add. Yeah.
Well, the thing is, just to be clear, I'm not trying to in any way, shape, or form say that someone didn't see what they say they saw. That's not how I work. Whenever I'm asked to look at evidence, I look at the evidence and then I report on that and I give it to whoever needs it. And then they can make out whatever they want from that. But sometimes I have to interpret my own work to relay it to other people. And in doing that, it calls into question sometimes when one pilot says one thing and another pilot says something different. And then you have to try to figure out, okay, here's a case in point. Fravor says the engagement was somewhere around 5 minutes long. Alex Dietrich says the engagement was around 10 or so seconds long. I believe the answer is probably between the two somewhere. I'm not, and even though Fravor was, had many more thousands of hours or what have you, there's always somewhere between the middle is what you have to look at. But I don't fixate on that. What I do is I look at the physical evidence that I can get a hold of, and then I try to gather evidence to support the statements or to not necessarily take away from the statements, but to clarify statements that eyewitnesses make. The worst person that can walk into a courtroom and go up on the witness stand is an eyewitness, and that's just the way it works. When you see it on TV, it's just the reverse, because it's that aha Perry Mason moment when someone says, he did it, he did it. I could tell you some weird stories about those. But anyway, what I'd like to do is kind of take the events in chronological order, and kind of like explain what I saw and what Kevin stated, happened. I watched the Nimitz Encounters, which is a very good documentary by Dave Beatty, and
Yep.
A lot of the information that's in there is still accurate to this day. In other words, a lot of the information from Kevin Day has been the same since day one. It's always been 0.78 seconds. It's never been 0.7329 or whatever any other number. He's stuck to his story the same every time. And so that's why his testimony for me holds a lot of weight for me, and it gives me a little bit more guidance to look for. But there was a Perry Mason moment that I had with Kevin when we were talking almost 2 years ago, I think, or maybe it was a little over a year ago, when I was looking at the objects that were coming down from San Clemente Island, and Kevin was stating that they were in groups of 5 to 10. A bell kind of went off in my head because I had seen that kind of before. But I wasn't exactly sure. So let's take this in chronological order so it makes sense to everybody watching and so we can stay at the same thing. But to clarify something, I am going to take all the events and separate them. So Fravor's sighting is a completely separate event from Kevin Day seeing the objects on radar, which is another completely separate event from Chad Underwood filming what he filmed. Mm-hmm. For me, they're all three completely unrelated to each other. Okay, they're related in a way, but they're not related because, in my opinion, all three are three completely different objects. Mm-hmm. So, with that being said, I'll move forward here. And I know people are going to be in there saying all kinds of stuff.
So I'm actually, objects, just real quickly, I'm not actually getting any comments, so I don't know why, but nothing's showing up, and it's very unusual. If I get 10 people looking, I get comments. So I've got currently on Twitter 891 currently watching. So for there to be no comments, I'm not sure. It's got to be a technical issue on the end.
Trust me, they're coming. They'll be coming.
I might be able to clarify the timing. I might be able to clarify the timing here real quick. It take me about 2 minutes.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead. Pop in, Kevin. Go ahead.
Okay, when Fast Eagle, it's a flight of 2, Fast Eagle takes the intercept, we take them to the merge. And as soon as they get to the merge plot position, which is 2 objects in the same vertical piece of sky, and whether they on the radar display, it looks like 1 now. They're just over top of each other. That may have been what Dietrich saw. That lasted about 15 seconds because as soon as they got to the merge plot, Mike, whatever whatever Fravor had intercepted in Fast Eagle 01, that object dropped down to the surface of the ocean to 50 feet above the ocean in 0.78 seconds. Dietrich stayed high as cover. Fast Eagle 01 chased it down. This is the kind of guy he was. And he dogfought it. And then that thing disappeared in front of him. He went zorching back to his cap station, and it was already there in front of him. So all the numbers are correct. Dietrich's perspective at 15 seconds probably accurate. My perspective is the only reason why I know 0.78 because one of the computer techs did something he wasn't supposed to. He kept a little piece of data because I actually saw it on the computer. It took 0.78 seconds. They actually took all of our data. in Commander's Favor perspective was it took about 5 minutes because he was actually in. He merged it high, and then he dogfired it low. So from his
Kevin, that
perspective, it was 5
.87,
minutes.
that 0.78 seconds is from 80,000 to 20,000. Is that
Correct? No, not
28,
80,000.
20,
From
28,000.
20,000.
yeah, 20,000.
From
Yeah.
20,000 to surface?
To surface, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
very good. Thank you.
So Kevin, let me ask you this: the data for the object dropping from 20 to the surface of the ocean, that data was from Fravor's contact point, correct? From where Fravor was,
When they
or
were
was
up
that a
high,
different one?
when they made the initial intercept up at 20,000, yeah, it went.
Okay.
As soon as
The only thing
intercepted
that's kind of confusing is because Fravor says, or according to the pilot accounts, when they got there, they didn't really see anything, and they had to look around for it. And he looked down, and that's when he saw the surface of the water disturbance, and then he saw the object above that. So
that's probably all accurate. I could see it
Okay.
on radar real clear, but maybe they didn't see it visually or on their radar from the airport.
Okay.
Aircraft.
So I just want to be clear that
That's
Yeah.
one of the reasons why you have that is one of the reasons why you have an air controller, because they may or may
Right.
not see it. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so just to be clear, when Fravor got there, he wasn't chasing something down. He got there and looked down, and according to him, saw the disturbance in the water, and then above that disturbance, then he noticed that the TicTac object, and then that's when he went down to investigate. That was my understanding. Would that be accurate?
Yeah, I mean, if we sat down with a piece of paper and drew this all out, all the numbers.
Yeah,
would
yeah.
jive. Yeah.
I got you. Okay,
you're reporting spot on, brother. Yeah, on that.
Okay,
part.
appreciate it. All right,
Yeah,
so
you just
let me
have
back it up to the radar contacts that you got, because it actually started well
Go ahead.
before this event. So Kevin had
Go
been
ahead.
seeing these objects appear on his radar for several days. It wasn't just this one day; it was many days, and up to anywhere from 60 to 100 objects he had spotted over those days, and he had seen them roughly in groups of 5 or 10, and it just seemed that they were coming down from San Clemente Island, floating by or whatever, and then going off towards Guadalupe. So when he saw these objects, they were in
Catalina. I have to correct you.
Yeah, coming off of Catalina, and okay. So these objects, as they came down the coast, they were at about 28,000 feet and
Correct.
tacking in at about 100 to 120 knots.
Correct.
So what I did was I went and I looked for the winds aloft speeds for those dates around that time. And I posted them on Twitter. And Kevin, I think I sent them to you too. So what I did was the balloons, a lot of these balloons that were launched were weather balloons, not necessarily saying that Kevin's contacts were those, but we're going to just say that the balloons that were launched that I got the data from were a lot of the balloons that were in that area. And so from San Diego, we got measurements at 28,000 feet of the winds at around 26, 27, 28, 30, up to 30,000 feet were between 100 and 120 knots. Exactly. Yep. So at that point, my mind naturally, as an investigator, I'm looking at this going, okay, well, what object moves with the wind? Obviously a balloon, but I can't come out and just tell everybody, hey, it's a balloon just on that alone, because that wouldn't make sense. And it'd be easy to say, it's not a balloon. But let me add some extra information here. The Spy 1B radar on the Princeton had been upgraded just before they went out for the 8X and the workups. And when that upgrade was done, Kevin wasn't aware of it. It wasn't told. His clearance wouldn't allow him to know all the things that were done. But once that radar was upgraded, he wasn't aware of it. Is that correct, Kevin? Okay.
Well, I knew that everything had been upgraded, but as far as like technical details, I didn't have the clearance. That's correct. Yeah.
Right. So here's something.
For example, they replaced card X with card Y, that type of stuff. Like, no, I didn't have a clearance. No, I didn't have the need to know.
Right.
But I knew that the fidelity of the radar was going to be increased, sure. And just so you know, Mike, as soon as we did this, as soon as I started detecting these things, actually, we brought all of our systems down in the whole strat group, because our first suspicion was it was some kind of system malfunction. You betcha.
Right.
And so we ran all the diagnostics and brought everything back up in the strat group. And guess what happened, Mike? the contacts
They
got
came out.
clearer. No,
Yep.
they got even stronger. And we had
Yeah.
SPY 7 tracks. You know, SPY's ranked SPY 1 to SPY 7.
Right.
And these were the highest quality track quality that, you know, SPY can give you.
Right.
On you know, any ship that held them.
So part of when I was doing my data retrieval, trying to get as much data from as many sources as I can to figure out, okay, what these possibly were, I ran across a very interesting situation. Kevin started seeing these things, what was around November 10th?
Correct.
And then, and they ended abruptly on November 16th.
Correct.
Okay. So starting on November 10th, the United States Air Force started launching balloons. They launched 2 from Point Magoo, 2 from San Nicolas Island, and 1 from Vandenberg. They launched them. Some of the balloons are called special balloons, and special balloons has a double meaning here. Special meaning, 1, that they're launched at times outside of the normal range. 2, meaning that the balloon might be a special type of balloon that can maintain altitude or can do other things, whatever. And we won't get into that because that gets into some funky areas. But how that relates to this, when the data came in, some of the data actually on the weather that I got was actually from these balloons, and I'll send both of you the complete. You'll have everything here in just a few minutes. I meant to do it before the show started, but as I'm looking at the data from the balloons, I start thinking that his radar was enhanced. Is it possible that before the radar was enhanced, it could not see balloons, and afterwards could it? So I decided to find out. So I've already contacted NASA and gotten all the weather balloon data, because a lot of these balloons that were in that area were NASA balloons. So I contacted NASA. They forwarded me over to Edwards Air Force Base. I talked to Edward Teets at Edwards Air Force Base. He's the guy that runs the weather center there for the Armstrong research facility. And so in my talks with him, I asked him a point blank question. I said, listen, I said, if your radar, I said, the type of radar you guys have out there, I know you can't, tell me necessarily, but you're using Doppler on your weather. I said, but on the base, you also have to account for weather patterns that you have to explain to them that they might see on their phased array radar. He said, yeah. I said, so before phased array was a thing, weather balloons, which are launched twice a day at the weather stations around the world, 900 weather stations launching 1,800 balloons per day. So that's what's going up in the sky per day just on the weather stations. There's tons of other balloons that are going up. So before that, before the phased array radar was
on a global stage
was enhanced, could you see these? And he said no. And I said, is it possible that after the radar on the Princeton was the fidelity was changed, the resolution was changed, and the cones and all this other stuff was switched out? Do you think it's possible that the resolution could have got so sharp that they can now see these things? And he said that makes perfect sense, because it would also explain something else. So he says, let me check on something, I'll call you back. So he called me back about 3 hours later, and he says he talked to another person that he had this similar conversation with, and that they said basically the same thing, that they are now seeing things that they weren't seeing before, and it happened right after an upgrade. And guess what? The exact same thing happened on the Roosevelt. The Roosevelt SPY-1B radar was upgraded, and guess what? They started seeing these things. So Nimitz upgrades radar, they start seeing these things. Roosevelt upgrades radar, they start seeing these things. And the base that he talked about, they upgraded theirs, they started seeing these things. So the fidelity and resolution on the radar was increased enough to where they could see them. So that was like, okay, that's great, but that's still not enough. So, but wait, there's more. Okay, so in my talks, I was talking with Kevin, I think via Messenger. And I said, Kevin, I said, one of the things that's confusing me is that these things were coming down in a formation from, Catalina and in that area towards you at 100, 120 knots. I can't put together that these balloons would stay that close together and in a formation. I know they'd all go up together, but they would start separating and moving out and whatever. And also the distances between the launch locations was over 10 miles apiece. I mean, each launch station was more than 10 miles from the other one. And so I asked Kevin, I said, how far apart were these balloons in this, or were these objects in your formations? And he said over 10 miles. And so when he said that, that kind of clicked a couple of things for me. And I was like, okay, this makes a lot more sense, because if I'm thinking the word formation, I'm thinking like an air show, planes flying by, you have 5 planes in, an angle. So I think a lot of people misinterpreted that as that. But he's also said loose formation. And I know in a loose formation means they could be anywhere, just as long as they're all flying the same direction, going to the same target. But most people watching this don't know that. So they're thinking formation. I've asked every single person I've asked, how close do you think these objects were together? And everyone said they were within 500 feet, 20 feet, 100 feet of each other. They don't know that these things were over 10 miles apart. So that
Mike,
kind of like,
Mike, let me clarify something.
Please.
I'll use my hand in representation. These things were coming out from 80,000 feet, and they were close together, 500 yards and closer. Yeah. And then they would stop. They would stop in the sky off the east coast of Catalina Island, 10 miles off the coast. That's where the 10-mile number came from.
Mm-hmm.
They would station the 10 miles, and then one at a time they would take off from the group all by itself and go all by itself through the op area. And then that one would disappear off Guadalupe Island, and then the next one in the formation would go. And it would leave the other 3 here, and then the other one would go, and it would leave the last one there, and then the last one would go, and then another group of 5 to 10 would come out of the sky and set off the 10 miles off the east coast of Catalina, and it would do it again, over and over. If I counted all the groups, 100.
Yeah, but just the objects that you saw tracking down, just that one thing, those objects came down, hit 28,000 feet, and started tracking towards you. Is that correct? Is that what you're saying? One at a time. Okay.
One object at a time, not the whole group. Yeah.
I had another question. One of our people came in.
If that was balloons, if that was balloons, one balloon departed the group and came by itself. No, I have a question about the winds. Were the winds coming? Were the winds, because prevailing winds normally aren't north to south?
But they were on this day at 28,000 feet. They were.
I mean, I said normally. Of course, it does.
At 28,000 feet, they definitely were. Most of the winds were trailing, just like you said. They were westies. Yeah.
I had a question come in from someone called Flight Life. Do these weather balloons use hydrogen? Wouldn't that give off heat plumes? No. Okay.
No, helium. No, they all use helium. They're all, when they're launched, they're about 6.5 feet to maybe 9 feet diameter, depending on how much helium they put in. And this will probably help answer another one of Kevin's questions here. As the balloon rises, it will expand to about 25 feet. After it gets to that, after it gets to its altitude, it will burst. And then when it bursts, the balloon will just fall into pieces. But the sound package, the sounding package that has all the instrumentation in it, will start coming down. When it does, it has a tiny little parachute. Some of them have these little funky other parachutes, but most of the ones that were used at that time were type. I can't remember the name that they called it, but it was a standard type weather balloon where it would go up to about 100 to 110,000 feet. It would burst, and then it would drop down. And as you're at 110,000 feet, there's not very much atmosphere up there. That's why the balloon expands so much. But as those packages start falling down, they start to pick up more and more. And just like when you watch SpaceX Dragon capsule come back, you'll see the drogue chutes come out, and then you'll see the big parachutes come out, but they don't fully inflate until it gets closer to the ground. So what happens is the same thing with these weather type balloons. The balloon will burst, this package will come down, and instead of it coming down like a lawn dart, they do have a parachute package on. Most of the time, a lot of times these parachutes will fail, but whenever the parachute works, it's raining darts. So as this object comes down at about 35 to 25,000 feet, somewhere in that range, depending on how wound up the parachute is, the parachute will open up, and then all of a sudden you'll see the object stop. On radar, it will appear to stop. It'll look just like an object came from space, and then all of a sudden that parachute opens up when it hits enough air. That's the air density is enough to actually make the parachute open up, and then the object will seem to stop, and it will just start moving. So it's going to fall down, open up, and start tracking along with whatever the wind speed is of that day. In this particular day, it was 100 miles an hour, or 100 knots. So as that moves, it'll move along, but it will also slowly it'll slowly descend. So it should have started seeing, you should have started seeing the numbers come down a little bit, like they were going, they weren't staying at 28,000 feet after that. They were probably coming down. I don't know, because we don't have the data. I just have the data from the balloons. Yeah.
So Mike, so this goes up there, it eventually pops, which is what it's supposed to do. It drops.
Yeah.
What's terminal velocity? I don't know the number exactly off the top of my
120
head.
miles an hour.
Terminal coming down.
Yeah.
From the 120 or 80,000 foot ceiling to the 28,000 foot.
It's based on gravity. It's 9.8 feet per second per second.
All right.
Until you hit the air.
How quickly they came from 80,000 to 28,000?
80,000 to from 110,000 to about 80,000 feet, there will be traveling pretty fast because there's no wind resistance. So they could possibly break sound barrier. If you remember when Felix Baumgartner, when he jumped out of the Red Bull Stratosphere, whatever the name of the balloon was, he fell and he exceeded the speed of sound as a person falling from space. So these objects, when they're falling, if there's no air resistance, there's really nothing holding them back. So they're going to go pretty fast. Now, they're not going to go 25,000 miles an hour or anything like that. Right. But they should go somewhere in the neighborhood between 500 and possibly up to 600-700 miles an hour. Coming
Kevin,
straight down.
Do you recall the amount of time it took to go from 80,000 to 28,000? Do you recall that on your radars?
I have a question, Mike. Have you seen the heads-up displays from the cockpits? Because all of the thermal cameras are showing hot objects. Now,
right.
At any point, are the balloons hot?
Well, the balloon's going to be hotter than the surrounding air. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. The balloon, if the balloon has been in the air for a long period of time, remember the balloon that was shot down last year, that was shot down over Lake Michigan, I think it was? That balloon had circled the Earth 3 times before they shot it down, that $12, $20, whatever balloon it was. Okay. So that balloon would probably be a temperature neutral. That's probably why they could barely see it. And they thought it had some other technology or something else was going on, because
if not, I'll resend you the images from the cockpit. You can examine them. Yeah. It'll show you the modes they're in and everything.
Oh, I've got all that. I fly DCS too, and it's super accurate as far as it.
You got them.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I got them. So I have all the AppFlare stuff. One of my best friends, he died about 6 months ago. He worked at Raytheon, and so I'm real familiar with the AppFlare. He gave me quite a bit of good information.
I'm talking about the actual heads-up display from it's either Dietrich.
Yeah, no, but I've got both. You got the heads-up display that happens inside. Yeah, Fravor didn't have his AppFlare at all, so his is
I wanted to make sure you had what I had. Cool.
Yeah, I've got it. I've got the flight manual for the F-18, all that. I got it all. But the objects as they fall, that's one type of balloon. That's the bursting type, the 6.5 foot diameter. When it's launched, goes up to whatever, and anybody can read anything I'm telling you. Is simply, you can just do a Google search, how do weather balloons work, boom, you'll see it. The other type of balloon is called a buoyancy layer pressurized balloon. Buoyancy layer pressurized balloons are a type of balloon that is made to stay at a certain altitude. So it can adjust its own altitude and go up to, say, 20,000 feet if they need to have measurements at that altitude for a longer period of time. Otherwise, if you don't do that, the balloon is just simply going to go through that layer of atmosphere, take that measurement at that second, and keep going up. And so you're just going to have a quick snapshot of that atmosphere at that level. The buoyancy layer pressurized balloons can maintain their actual altitude and gather information for a much longer period of time. To give you a case in point, the balloon or the round object that we see in one of one of Jeremy Corbell's videos off that Navy ship that goes into the water, that, to me, my opinion is that looks exactly like the end of life of a buoyancy layer pressurized balloon, because that's exactly how I've seen them come in. They just slowly go over the water and then they go in. They have a device inside that once they touch the water, they basically not explode, but they disintegrate, and then it sinks to the bottom, so it doesn't become an issue for turtles and things like that. So anyway.
Are you saying boundary layer or buoyancy layer?
Buoyancy and boundary. You'll see that the two terms are used back and forth, but buoyancy and boundary layer, you'll see both of them. And so it's BLPB. Okay.
Okay, very
good. So that's the two types of balloons that were utilized in that area. So one balloon might account for some of the observations, and the other balloons might account for the other ones. And I hate saying that some of these objects that you may have been tracking on the Princeton radar were balloons, and not sound like I'm crazy for saying it. But this has happened many times where balloons have been tracked and they have been identified as one thing or another, and it's not the fault of the person. It's not the fault necessarily of even of the equipment. It's just that's how they come up. And if your radar was, its fidelity was increased drastically, and all of a sudden you see a lot of things, I can understand that would make sense. But since you were seeing 5 to 10, which is the exact same number that NASA was launching that week, and because the sighting started around the 10th or so, or got more, you saw more around the 10th, and then it became an issue, and then they ended sharply on the 16th, then that tells me that this has to do with what I'm about to tell you. On November 16th, the day that these sightings ended, a hypermissile test was done in the same area. That hypermissile was a U.S. Air Force X-43B missile. It was its third flight, and it actually achieved I almost said warp. It achieved a Mach speed of Mach 10.5. I almost said warp 10.5. So what happened was they were originally going to launch that on the 15th, I think, but they had to scrub it for that day for whatever reason, and they pushed it over to the 16th. So the weather centers that they were getting the data from, those weather centers were giving that information, and that information was coming from those balloons, and that information was coming from 2 other aircraft that I'll talk about in just a minute. So once Kevin, I got 5 objects here, I got 10 objects here, that matches exactly the 2 from Point Magoo, the 2 from San Nicolas, and the 1 from Vandenberg. Even Edwards launched 1, but that wouldn't have even made it to your area. And it's also possible that a lot of these balloons may not be the exact same balloons, because I actually did the numbers on this, and I gave the data to a couple other people, and we ran the numbers on a few of these balloons, and those balloons ended up in like the Hollywood Hills, Burbank, all these other locations. I'm thinking, well, these aren't our balloons. But as I kept digging into it, I started finding that I was fixated on just the balloons from the NASA balloons, and it's all balloons do the same thing. So I started having to look further south of where these balloons were launched from. So it started making sense to me that, okay, Kevin's description of what he's seeing matches balloons. The only thing that doesn't match is the speed numbers. And so when I started looking at it, I said, well, I can't account for the 0.78 seconds. I have no way of refuting that, and I'm not planning to, and I don't want to refute it, because if that's what you calculated, that's what it is. The only thing I'm trying to say here is that a lot of times people immediately discount balloons because it sounds silly that our guys would, misidentify something that's a balloon, and then they call me a disinfo agent or whatever, and which is laughable. But these objects have fooled a lot of other people around the world, pilots, air traffic controllers, and virtually anyone. So that's that section there. So now we've got the radar thing where there's a new possibility and more information that makes sense as to what Kevin was seeing, but at the same time, it doesn't account for the speeds that were claimed. It doesn't account for the 0.78 seconds, because I know where you were going with that earlier, Stephen. You were thinking about how fast was this balloon coming down? Was it, because there's no air resistance, could it have possibly traversed that distance at that time? And if it went from 20,000 feet to the surface, that's, I think, is about 5,000 miles an hour, or maybe 25,000, somewhere in ridiculous G-force.
Kevin Knuth, who I interviewed, did a lot of calculations on that, and it was something along.
Yeah, I didn't do them, but the physicists did them. It's like, what, 30,000 miles an hour? I mean,
and it's like something like 5,400 G forces were exerted. If those numbers are correct,
no sonic booms.
With no sonic booms, no nothing. So that's that. And I think we're here all for open, honest communication. And I think
one of the other things. No, I think the truth lies in both of our stories. If you combine them both,
Yeah.
it was a confusing picture, and maybe both are true. Maybe, yeah, there was a UAP and there was confusion with the balloons.
Yeah, but let me give you some new technology here. Something that
And on the confusion with the balloon side, Mike,
yeah,
maybe it was on my pay grade. I was watching the tactical side, right? But on the intel side, there was cross connect with this. Maybe there was people that knew about this experiment and they were getting confused with what I was seeing on the radar with their experiment of the balloons. Makes sense.
it's
right?
possible. I think there was a lot of things because I separated the three events from each other. And once I did that, my clarity of what was going on became much better because I kept trying to saying, okay, now the object's over here and now it's doing all this other stuff and they're tracking it. So that was one question I had to find out is how in the hell is this object moving around? Because you had good solid tracks and why is it that I'm thinking this object over here is a different object than this object that's over here? My story would go out the window if they were in fact the same object.
I wouldn't throw away,
so
I wouldn't throw away your research because I think both stories are based in truth.
They are because I've gathered so much data here.
You want to know this? It kind of makes the hair on my arm stick up. You want to know why? I won't put you on the spot, but in my book, Sailor's Anthology, the story of the seer. Now, a lot of people are aware how that came about. No one would believe us, or me particularly. And so I said, I know what I was confused. Back in 2008, quit my job, was really mad. And I said, I know what would I do if I could go back in time and do this all over again? What would I do different? And I thought about it and I said, I know what I'll do. I'll write a story and I'll fictionalize it so no one gets in trouble. Right. And I'll publish it in the Library of Congress.
Right. I read that.
Yeah. And I forgot where I was going with that. What was the last thing you said right before I interrupted you?
I was going to bring out what I was going to talk about was there's several other pieces of information that a lot of people don't have, or they may not have thought that might apply here. One of which was in the early testing phases.
Yeah, thank you. If I could continue my point. In that story, the fictional character was me, obviously. Talks about he's contacted by some CIA guys in town here, Cave Junction. Life went on for me. And this story all came true, by the way. Two guys did come here and contact me later, believe it or not. And that's a whole nother story. Yeah. But in the seer, I had said that those objects really weren't there at the time until I gained awareness of them, because there was a test going out in the Nevada desert. And as soon as I gained awareness, the alternate reality changed places. Yep. So I'm kind of describing that test thing you're talking about, and it kind of spooky to me a little bit. How in the heck?
Yeah. And I think where the issue for you comes in is that they were testing things in your piece of the sky. And I went back and tried to figure out where everything was. The balloons are a non-issue. They're going to launch the balloons regardless of what you're doing. There's nothing you can do to stop balloon launch.
You don't have control over them. They go on with the winds.
Yeah, and not one aircraft has ever been downed by a weather balloon. So until that happens, they're going to continue to do it. So each day at 12 a.m. and 12 p.m. UTC, all the balloon stations around the world launch their balloons at the exact same time. These balloons, when they go up, there's no way to determine essentially where they're going to go. They can roughly estimate it. You can actually put your balloon data into a online calculator, and it'll tell you roughly where your balloon's going to end up.
And they're up high enough they don't have to go into the notice to airmen. That's why they weren't in the notice.
There's no NOTAMs for those, and also they don't remain in the airspace for commercial aircraft long enough to really present a danger, because they're going straight through the airspace this way. They're not like meandering around. Now, the buoyancy layer pressurized balloons, those are a little bit different because they do maintain altitudes and they do have transponders on board, the ADBS I may have said that backwards. So they have that. But the other balloons,
and I have seen them in the NOTAMs,
Yep. And so with the test going on, there was really none of. Now, the day of the test where they had the X-43 launch, they did have some warnings that went out, I think, because it was a secret test, which is weird because it was secret and public at the same time. There's a whole nother story to this, naturally. But anyway, so the test took place on the 16th. That's when the observations of the balloons ended. The odds of the balloons starting at around the 10th, ending on the 16th, launching 100, I think it was around 100 balloons, and then those numbers match exactly yours. The odds of them not probably being together, or maybe part of the same thing, that may have been somehow the radar may have misinterpreted something or whatever, because it could not see these before. The radar, before it was upgraded, was not tracking weather balloons. And my understanding is I've talked to many radar operators, and they've all said the same thing. Said, yeah, once these came on the screen, we had to hit. There's a button called declutter that you basically hit to get all the extraneous crap off the screen, because it becomes too much on the screen. And so they hit that, and then that's supposed to clear it up. You turned your system off, turned it back on, your tracks got more clear. And that's because you're tracking real objects. They were actually there. So that the groups that were coming down, that kind of covers that. The dates and times match with the X-43. It was, the X-43 was launched on November 16th, 2004, and achieved Mach 10.5. It was in the same area that you guys were. But here's where it gets interesting. Here's where I really kind of freaked out when I started getting the information back. I had to account for Chad Underwood's sighting. So Chad Underwood was the Wizzo. And keep in mind, most of the people watching this are coming over from Twitter and some other areas, and they pretty much know this story. So a lot of this stuff that I'm talking about is not really going to be much different. But this is where it's going to get a little weird. Kevin, do you remember when Chad Underwood's flight took off? About how long after Fravor's flight landed that was?
It was in the same launch cycles, and because he RTB'd, and no, don't quote me, but I'm thinking it was within a half an hour.
Yeah.
But I could.
So when he RTB'd, yeah. My understanding, it was roughly about an hour. So when he RTB'd back from the time of the sighting and the time he took off and started heading towards where he was heading towards,
between half an hour to an hour makes sense. Yep.
There you go. Okay, yep. So the two events were about, let's say, an hour. Let's say 45 minutes apart. Okay.
Okay. Makes sense.
Yeah, and so Chad's direction of travel was over towards the cap point, from my understanding. Is that correct?
Correct.
Now, Cap Point was if you drew a triangle up on the southern coast of California, where I used to live, still live actually, technically, but I'm in Florida right now. Over from Catalina Island over to Huntington Beach, that would be probably the bottom line of where that Cap Point was. Somewhere it would be between the two. That was my understanding, because if we looked at the map the way it was drawn out, that was a rough idea, because you can't give the exact location of the cap point, but it was about there. If he was heading,
go ahead.
Yeah.
So within Whiskey 291. Yeah,
right.
They were all contained in within Whiskey 291. The notional threats off on the coast, right? So we're floating around off to the west.
So
the conditions are to our east, correct?
Okay. So basically heading kind of that direction. So the object that he picked up on his ATFLIR, the object, because his ATFLIR showed a range number of 99.9, that means that the object was outside of the ability to measure the distance. He was also in the air combat setting. It wasn't set up for, in other words, you don't see the HUD display on the screen, so you don't know the direction he's actually pointing the plane, but you can tell that the object is at the same basic flight level he is, because it's only pointing a few degrees one way or another. And that object was about the same speed, because it never really got bigger, never really got smaller at the time he was tracking it. So I started looking at it from that standpoint. I said, okay, well, what am I looking at here? So I went through over 300 different videos of different aircraft on FLIR and ATFLIR and all the different FLIR type military systems. And then one day I was watching a video by Dave Fouch, who's a Home Depot level. God, I said that. Sorry about that. That's my apologies. But he's a depot level. He's going to be mad at that one. A depot level technician for FLIR. But he's not rated for at FLIR. So a lot of the information he was given was not, you couldn't apply it towards at FLIR. I mean, there's a difference between the two. And so as I was getting more information on at FLIR, and I was flying DCS myself, and like playing around, trying to get used to the controls and the things, I got a hold of my friend, and I said, listen, I said, is it possible that this object that we see on the TicTac video could be another F-18? And he says, it could be a number of things, because it's really, if you blow it up, it's hard to tell. So I sent him a video. I sent him the video I made where it shows, and it's on my channel. It shows both aircraft side by side. So there's the TicTac video, and then it shows the video that Dave Fouch had side by side, so you can see that. Taking into consideration that the TicTac was much further away, the signature that you see, when you look at stuff enough, you start to get an idea of what they are based on what you're looking at. And that video side by side, they look almost identical at a certain point. And so I started thinking, well, let me look at some more videos before I actually say this, because someone else might show a video that shows something completely different. And I couldn't find anything that was completely different. It really came out to be that way. And in all the years I've been doing this, I can pretty much firmly say that that was an F-18 at a distance beyond range. Now, here's the problem with that. But Mike, don't you think that these guys would know where all their planes are? Well, yeah, they're Link 16, and you've got all the Princeton's tracking all these objects. Princeton can track anywhere from 200 to 500 objects at any given time. That may have been classified information, but I don't care. But that level of fidelity is really cool, that they can track that many objects. But most of these objects are sending some sort of signal back and forth or whatever that kind of gives you an idea who they are. They're either on Link 16 or they're something else is going on. And civilian aircraft fly with their transponders, and military aircraft have transponders. But what aircraft would be flying inside that area that wouldn't necessarily have a transponder on? What F-18 would do that? Well, I started thinking, well, maybe a Growler was doing that, because they were doing red team, blue team, and he was going to come in with super secret, no one can see him and stuff like this. But that was ruled out, because that would still be another aircraft that you would have to account for. So there was this mysterious object that looked just like an F-18, but I couldn't put anything to it because there was no unaccounted for F-18s. And then I looked back at the X-43 again. The X-43 was launched by all Air Force personnel. But guess what? Two planes were flying right beside it. Two F-18s. The F-18s are painted white, and they were flying the days before the actual launch. They would take turns. One of the pilots' name was Dana Purifoy, and Dana flew the B-52 on the flights previous to this as its pilot, and then he flew the chase planes, which is what those two F-18s are, two NASA F-18s. But Mike, you're crazy. This can't be the case. Well, a lot of logical questions have to come into play when you think about this. If Underwood's flight was heading towards this, and if it was such an important object that they had to cancel the training, wouldn't you think that he would have more reason to get closer, step on the gas, go look at it, go find out what it is? That didn't happen. So a lot of people that's a normal question a lot of people have. I don't know if Kevin has any answer for that as to why he wasn't told to go pursue it, but it wasn't a gas issue because he went right to it and he had plenty of gas according to some of the information I had, but I don't know.
I recommended to the skipper to knock it off because there was a huge safety of flight issue in the Skylos, and so I very strongly recommended Captain Smith knock it off.
Okay,
so we knocked off it's called RTB, and
that makes sense.
Yep, because it was unsafe at that point.
Right.
We're just lucky someone didn't get hurt or killed.
I agree. I agree.
My assessment.
Safety is number one concern. And I knew when I brought some of these subjects up that it was going to be, wait a second. But so far, nothing that we've talked about has been a safety issue. Nothing that, none of the objects I'm talking about, the objects raining down that were probably, possibly balloons. I don't want to say probably, we'll just say possibly, balloons that were coming down, but we don't know how in the world that tracking number of the speed was taken into play. And why would the Air Force need to take data? Well, you're about to find out why. In the early stages of DRFM testing, back in the early 2000s, there was a major push towards testing the DRFM modules. The DRFM stands for digital, goddamn, I'm brain fart now. Digital radio frequency modulation. And what that is that is a device that can mimic being any other aircraft you want it to be. It can mimic being any aircraft at any speed that you want it to be. They've been used for years and years and years. In fact, a very early version of that happened off the coast of Cuba when we wanted to find some missiles. We sent up a bunch of planes. We only sent up actually a few to go down to Cuba to take a look, and submarines were in that area. So the submarines were off the coast of Cuba. We had a single jet flying into Cuba. Cuba looks at the radar, and what we wanted Cuba to do was turn on their radar so we could see all the locations of the SAM locations during the Cuba Missile Crisis. So what we did was well, let's fly this plane down there. We'll get their attention, but they're not going to turn on that radar unless they think holy hell's about to happen. So the submarines that were down there launched a bunch of balloons. These balloons had reflectors on them. And once these balloons got airborne, the Soviets and the Cubans looked at this and said, holy crap, now they had to turn on all the radars. That's when we were able to see everything and where it was and what have you. So fast forward, what, 60, 70, 80 years, and now the technology has come to the point where it's absolutely ridiculously off the chart. So back in 2002, 2001, and 2003, there was a lot of testing going on in early versions of the current version of the DRFM. The Nemesis system that the Navy started putting out is exactly this. Tyler Rogerway wrote about it. I've written about it. And when I was researching it, I decided, you know what? I'm going to bypass all of this crap that I'm reading, and I'm going to contact the company that actually makes the damn things. The name of the company that makes them currently for the Navy is called Mercury Systems. So many of the objects, and we're going to bring in Roosevelt a little bit because a lot of the sightings that happen on Roosevelt perfectly match exactly what these things do. So I contacted Mercury Systems. They had just been awarded a $13 or $25 million contract. And the objects or the modules that they do, they put them inside the plane, and the module will take in the data that it's receiving from radar from whatever object is tracking, and it takes that signature, brings it into the system, reprograms it to be whatever it wants it to be, and then sends it back out almost instantaneously to the point where you could not even tell on radar that that signal had been manipulated and sent back to you. So, and at the same time, it can broadcast. It can make it look like you've got 50 B-52s coming down on your door. And this system is working today. I mean, it's been in use for many, many years. And in testing of it, the Growler, which is an F-18, the Growler is the actual plane that they actually put this on. And there were Growlers in that area back then. So some of the earlier things you may have seen on radar could have been a possible early test of this. Now, this is now just throwing enough crap against the wall to see what sticks, Mike, right? That's correct for the Nimitz event. It's not correct for Roosevelt, because Roosevelt, when I started digging deep into it, I actually had somebody kind of spill the beans a little bit. Here's the magic words. When they say, look at your ASA, there's a whole fleet of them. And the configuration that's been described. Now, keep in mind, now we're getting out of Nimitz a little bit, so I'll bring it back, but I just want everybody to know how far this goes. When they say that clicked in my head as far as what that might be. And when you see these objects on your screen, they look real. You cannot tell the difference between this and something that's real. The only way you can tell is by actually going there and looking. If you go there and there's nothing there, then there's nothing there. But some of the information that has to be bounced around inside that airspace has to hit a reflector or two. And some of the modules are light enough to where they can actually fly them in buoyancy layer pressurized balloons. Well, if you want, go ahead and pull up a picture, just put in buoyancy layer pressurized balloon and take a look at it. It's a clear balloon. And the clear balloon with the sphere inside looks exactly like a invention that was done back in the 40s that is of a reflector. The reflectors used to hang below. You had the balloon and you had the little reflector that hang down. And the reflector was only there so that you could tell that there's a balloon there on radar. But they realized after a while that that's really not even necessary, because what difference does it make, you know, if you see it or not? The balloon's not going to be in the area long enough, and no one ever, you know, had a problem with it. But they did put the idea of putting the balloons on the inside. And also for ships that are at sea, they can take a balloon, put it on a tether, and send that up to give a better reflection in case someone needs to track them or find out where they are if they're under distress or something. That's why submarines have them. Submarines have tons of balloons. A lot of people don't think balloons are on submarines, but there's several different types. So that's another part of this story that holds a little ground here. Whereas you have the top left one is like the one that was also over El Cajon in San Diego. So everybody remembers that shape. If you remember seeing that one video of the balloon or the object going over this guy's house, it looked exactly like that, but it was also part of a kid's high school project. But anyway, so Ryan Graves, when he stated that, keep in mind, Ryan Graves has never seen any of these, but as he reports what others are telling him and what have you, obviously the famous report is that cube in the sphere. And if you pull that, if you actually type the words cube and sphere balloon, it pops right up. But that would give me an idea of what that is. The odds of it not being that don't make a lot of sense to me, because it just makes sense that it would probably be that. But a lot of the interpretations of it, of saying it's going against the wind or it's doing this and that, some of those, we have to have more data to be able to extrapolate what actually was going on. But circling back to Nimitz. So Chad's video, and when you see the documentary I'm making kind of like visualizes all this. So people, you know, sometimes when you hear something, you know, you may be misinterpreted, I may say it wrong, and then people have all kinds of visions of what it is. But when you put it in a video and you say, yeah, that's kind of accurately what I'm trying to say, it'll make more sense. And that's why Dave Beatty's video is so good. So if anyone hasn't seen Nimitz Encounters, you definitely got to see that. But the two aircraft, the two NASA F-18s, those aircraft were flying every day. They would switch back and forth. They would fly up and down inside the channel of where they were going to, you know, send the B-52 as it was doing its flight coming out. So if you actually go back, you can look at the B-52's flight pattern, and you can see exactly where it went and where the X-43 was launched and stuff like this. Now, I'm not saying that the X-43, the actual missile launch, is something that was any of these stories, because at that point in time, it would have been one object going Mach 10.5. And that's exactly what it did. So you probably tracked it, and this is probably going to explain something else. There were more than one experiment going on at the time. Now, this was not actually in your area. You were in Whiskey 291, I think it was. And some of the other areas that were assigned towards the Air Force for flying this were a bit different. They were not in the exact same airspace. So the X-43 was not launched as a test over your airspace. It was further away, but it would have shown up on your radar. You probably would have seen it. And you may have seen a couple other things that were happening at the same time too. So the Air Force was testing quite a few things. I believe it's quite possible that once they got wind that your radar was able to pick up on some of the things that they originally had never known your radar could pick up, they may have decided to make a judgment call and come out and pick up that data. So that's a possibility. I'm just going to kind of put that out there a little bit. I don't have any evidence to support that. Everything else I've said tonight, I actually have evidence to support it, but that I don't have. But what I do have is I was told at a certain point in time that there were 2 people or 4 people that actually visited ship, 5 in total, but 4. 2 were from a actual contractor and 2 were from the Air Force. So apparently, and this is just me putting it out there from based on what I've heard. So this is new information possibly that people can utilize to try to do their research. But what I was told was that 2 people came from a specific contractor, which I can't name right now, and 2 people came from the Air Force. The 2 people that came from the Air Force went to one ship, and the 2 other ones should have been in plain clothes or dressy plain clothes or whatever, would have went to the other ship. So I'm not sure which ones went where, but whichever ones were wearing the flight suits that had Air Force insignia, I think those went to Princeton, if I'm not mistaken. And then the ones that stayed aboard on Nimitz, those were the ones that came from the contractor. And they took all of the data, the 8mm tapes that came off the 18s. They took the bricks off the Hawkeye, all of basically everything, to the point where you guys had to go dock and get new stuff to record on. That's my understanding.
They had to erase the blank tapes even.
Yep. So
Kevin, what do you think of this so far? So, I mean,
I like
obviously,
it.
it's
No,
predicated
there
on
was-
getting all the evidentiary,
No,
information.
I knew the answer was going to be complex, and I've been saying since day one, there's got to be some prosaic explanations mixed into the non-prosaic stuff, because I still believe there's non-prosaic stuff going on. Like, for example, after Commander Fravor on Fast Eagle flight, after it broke off in front of him, that same object went to their assigned cap station. I don't think weather balloons can do that.
Right.
And not only that, to me, let's assume just for a second that it was a UAP, okay? And forget about the weather balloon thing. And I'm entertaining that, and I think it's part of the answer here. I really do. I honestly saying that.
Yeah.
But okay, well, why would that UAP do that? Now that question was answered for me. Hold on.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hold on. Let me finish my thought, and you can knock yours out of the park. I was thinking to myself for years, why would that UAP go to their assigned cap station? Not just any, but theirs. Exactly on it.
Yeah.
Until years later, we went on the SoCal X, and Caroline Corey spent a lot of money funding this thing. We had no idea we were going to see anything, but we did. They showed up for us, and apparently they showed up through a wormhole. They had them on radar. We had them 2 gamma ray bursts, all kinds of stuff on magnetron. I mean, you name it. They had all this gear set up on these tables. David Mason, Kevin Knuth, Matthew Zydalgas, quantum physicists. We had a NASA commercial astronaut up there on that roof, and they knew our intention. These objects, if we're talking about UAP here, they have something else. They know our intention before we know our intentions, and I think it goes back to a theory that has to do with David Bohm, believe it or not, the physicist, about collapse. When the quantum wave collapses, things can happen. It can turn into reality.
Yeah, because laws of physics are thrown out the window at that point, pretty much.
Yeah, and it's true. And they're thinking that ER equals EPR, the Einstein-Rosen equals Einstein-Rosen and Podolsky. It's a Jack Sarfati equation, right? And basically what that does is it's relating wormholes to quantum entanglement.
Right.
It's the same thing. It's the same principle.
Right.
So that's
and the
why
good thing about quantum entanglement is that could account for faster than light travel. It can also easily account for faster than light transmissions for communication. So, which is a huge problem.
I'm thinking that event, and assuming I'm not talking about weather balloons, assuming, because I'm going to toss the coin at this 50-50.
Mhm.
Okay. And I have to say, okay, it's 50-50. 50% me, 50% you. And I'm focusing on the UAP 50%. Okay. Let's
Mhm.
just say it really happened.
Sure.
I think 2004 was a message to be understood at some later point in time, happened to be me. It was a message that intention means something. In fact, when I was up on that roof, Dr. Zygalgus comes over to me. He says, Kevin, I have a question for you. I said, what? He said, do you think this phenomenon has anything to do with intention? And I got to tell you, man, my heart almost stopped because I've been thinking about that for years. And I looked at it, I almost started crying. I said, yeah, it's pretty clear to me.
Yeah.
How did they know we were going to be on this roof in this moment? And they showed up for us. I mean, we got them on radar. There's scientific paper being written about us in peer review right now. Kevin Knuth, Dr. Kevin Knuth, New York University at Albany.
Yep.
Yeah, and you've seen the pre-write. I don't know if you, at least I think you have. Yeah, it's been shared with a lot. If you haven't, I'll share it with you.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and I think it was a message. Because let me walk through this real quick, if I can.
Sure.
And Mike, stop me. You stop me, and I'll shut up at that point.
Oh no! Keep going. I enjoy listening to you.
Do you believe the Big Bang was right? Did it really happen?
Okay. I don't believe it happened the way they say. I was a believer that everything came into being at the same time, because the numbers and the cosmic background radiation and all of that points to 13.7 billion years ago. But at the same time, there's 400 million years of time that we can't account for. That all it was this soup.
Right, Mike. And they just found a new galaxy that kind of blows the Big Bang kind of out of the water too.
Yeah,
it's not.
Thanks to James Webb.
It doesn't matter. So either way, Big Bang or it just came into being. Do you think that act was intentional or unintentional?
That I don't know. I'm an atheist, so I don't have a theist.
Let me walk through my logic here. No, just kind of keep track of this. It turns into a math problem.
Okay, I got you. I can.
Right now, we're gonna say we don't know if the universe was intentional. It's 50-50.
Right.
Okay. Let's say it was intentional. We'll just go with the intention track. The universe was intentional.
Mm-hmm.
What happened to the intender? Did the intender choose to commit a cosmic suicide, or did the intender choose to survive his creation or her creation?
Right.
I don't know. Again, it's 50-50. It's 50-50. Let's say the intender of the creation, Big Bang, or was always there, chose survival. Okay, is that force, that creative force, active, or is it benign? I don't know. 50-50.
Right.
Okay, if it chose survival and it's active, let's go with active for a second.
Mm-hmm.
In what form would it express itself? We know there's 4 fundamental forces in nature. Gravity, weak nuclear, strong nuclear, and electromagnetism. I think there's number 5.
Yeah, there is a number 5.
There's a fifth force in the universe called fundamental. It's a fundamental physics. And I've taken liberty to name the force carriers in tentatons.
Mm-hmm.
This is an actual physics that you can engineer things from. You can actually make flying things from this.
Well, I firmly believe, like you to a degree, that something bigger is going on here that we don't quite understand or don't have the instrumentation to see it, or whatever it is. I don't necessarily believe that a specific entity created the universe from the beginning. I don't believe that at all. But I believe that there is something that allows us to have these connections and allows us to see things. A lot of people look at remote viewing. A lot of people look at people that are I consider myself claircognizant. I know that I know things without knowing how I know them.
Right.
I mean, just so everybody knows, I am a believer. As far as, I don't know if you can see that or not, but that's my tattoo on me, and that's on every craft that leaves our solar system. And that was done by Carl Sagan. Carl Sagan did not do my tattoo. Someone tomorrow is going to go, Mike said Carl Sagan did his tattoo. I'm like, no, he didn't. But the plaque that's on the side of the all craft that leave our solar system have that on it. And some people have some questions about that. Stephen Hawking said, that might not be that great of an idea, because you're basically telling them where it came from, and then here they come. But my thought process is this: I think any intelligent life that would traverse the hundreds of millions of light years or hundreds of light years to get to us probably aren't coming here to kick our ass. They're also not going to come here with craft that have these blinking lights and all this other stuff. If you see a UFO and it has blinking lights, it's my opinion that it's definitely not a UFO, because there's no reason to have we don't have them on our craft when they leave, other than craft that are docking with the station or something, but there's no reason to have it. And then, because a lot of people ask questions like, why would something come that far only to get here and crash? I get that, but I also see the other end of the spectrum. So I don't ever get into that area of the conversation, because that starts stretching this into an area that becomes the spiritual, metaphysical, and all these other things that is unique to each individual person, because everyone has their life experiences. Everyone has their religious beliefs, their spiritual beliefs, their personal beliefs. And at some point in time, it becomes more individual as you become older. It doesn't normally seem to get together. It's kind of starts separating a little bit. So as people get older, their experiences are much more different than other people's, but there are some common ground. And I think that's where a lot of people, start forming these groups and of like-minded individuals who have like-minded beliefs. And that's, to me, it's pitting people against each other. Yeah.
Let me clarify something. When I said the Big Bang and or it's only been here, always been here, I didn't imply that. I didn't imply God did that. I implied it was a physics.
Well, I think when you said that, was it intended? I may have misinterpreted that.
Let me ask you something. Do you believe that gravity is a god?
No.
How about electromagnetism? Is that God?
I don't believe anything. I don't believe in anything being God.
Intention is just a fundamental force. That's all. It's not God.
No, I get you. Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. It's not religion. I'm not religious like you.
No. I guess where the thing is that someone who is completely non-religious looks at anything that says something to the effect of it's intended to be a certain way because of like a thought, like somebody thought to do this, or something thought to do this, or some entity, or whatever is called. And that's where our minds go. We just shut down data, turn on data.
Hold on just a sec. You can go into WPS AI. I've been kicking the tires on it last couple of weeks.
I know, I saw that.
Yeah, you can type in a question like, please create a hyperlink list of how to make tuna fish and put them inside cans. And you could click in there, and 10 seconds later, it'll give you hyperlink list and instructions on how to make to do exactly how to go research it. Now, is that thing God? It can think. It has intention. It intended to tell me. It went inside. It did something to figure it all out.
And its answer for you is going to be different than its answer for someone else. So that message to you might be different than the message it gives to somebody else. Or maybe, depending on how it was.
It's always learning. Well, if the technology changes, and
absolutely.
It changes so quickly. By the time you ask it, the process is going to be different. So it's not going to tell you.
I would definitely like to do a show on AI, because there is a ton of stuff. I am a beta tester on many different platforms of AI. So there's a lot of stuff that's about to come out. Some of it has already come out. I did put up a video showing what Sora does, as far as the level of clarity and the unbelievable detail that you can do with this. I'm not allowed to actually show you the screen or the interface for it. But when this hits the market in its full form, the forms that are right now are being kind of borrowed. They're only using pieces of it, kind of like ChatGPT has gone through its iterations.
Sure. Chat box,
I'll send you the link to the video, and when you see the videos that's produced from this, it is mind-boggling. Like I have one of where we created a video of a Western gold mine town back in during the gold rush, and it's a drone flying through it. So the prompt was basically like, do a visualization of what it would look like during the gold rush through a town and blah, blah. And just very basic stuff. And the video that it produced, and it produces people out of thin air that look like people. So that's where we're going to have a lot of issues coming down the road. But let's circle back, and that would be definitely a good show. Kevin, I would definitely like to do a show with you on that, because I think you're going to offer some insight, because you've been looking at it too. That would be pretty cool.
Yeah,
pretty cool.
I want to be one of the early adopters in it, because there's no way to stop this, first of all. And
thank you.
Here's a little thing I came up with. If humans never adopt AI, then humanity will never adopt AI. It has to be on a human basis, because once people realize the tool this thing is, especially if you're a writer or a researcher, oh my God, it can save you some time. It doesn't ruin it, enhances your creative. People are afraid that it's going to ruin my creativity. I'm not going to have a job. The opposite is true. Oh my God.
And you get more time to do the other things that take.
Instead of taking 4 days to create an outline with references, hyperlinks, you can do it in 4 minutes now.
That's right.
And then unleash your creativity to work on the presentation and the book.
And you can write a mini book in your flair, your pen style, your everything, and the way the words you use, and it will learn that and write the book for you as you say, and you can go back and correct it, and then do all the graphics, the cover, everything.
Mike, therein lies the rub, because we have to figure out a way to give AI credit, because we don't want to plagiarize. We have to keep control of this so we don't get in trouble. But I'm looking at it as like Google 2.0. That's all it really is. It's a big memory bank.
Well, we are experiencing AI 2.0 is starting right now. And everything you've seen up to this point was AI 1.0.
Yep.
From now forward, we're going into 2. I've already got a glimpse of what 3 is, which has been talked about a little bit, but we're getting into 2 right now, which is going to be complete generation of videos and stuff like that. But let's circle back to Nimitz again, because I know we're going to run out of time here before long.
I wanted to let you guys go a little bit there. That was fun to go. Let you guys.
I can stay on all night long. I have no anything to do or whatever. So I'll stay on as long as you guys want. But what happened when I started to narrow down what Chad Underwood filmed, that's the key point, or one of the key points for me was, first off, a lot of people think that Fravor filmed that to begin with. We were constantly trying to correct that. I know you've probably been through the same thing.
Yep.
But when what Chad filmed from over roughly 40 or so miles away, the resolution, the detail and stuff like this. And plus, keep in mind, those are filmed on 8mm tapes. Those tapes are degraded to begin with after you've used them over and over again. And the fidelity of the image that you guys saw in combat was obviously much better than what we were seeing. And also, I can say this as fact. The videos of all 3 videos, but namely TicTac and that we're talking about tonight, but all 3 videos, there is, maybe not in existence now, but there was and had to be, and I'll verify this with Kevin in a second, a longer video. There is no question about that. So anyone that argues that what we're seeing is all they've got, okay, that may be all they have. They may be telling us the truth, but at some point in time, that would not be true, because these aircraft do not start filming these events in the middle of them and then end them before the event ends. It just doesn't work that way. Kevin, do you agree with that?
I totally agree. There's in pro words, we call it, he'll come back and say, committed your call. And at that point, he turns on the gun cameras.
Yep. And that's the gun camera. The app flare camera operates a little differently. And also, when the aircraft take off, the aircraft has its own recorder. So not necessarily video recorder, but the aircraft has to record stuff, because if the aircraft crashes, you're not going to say, oh shit, he crashed the plane and forgot to hit the button to let him know what happened. So it doesn't work that way. So the F-18, as soon as it takes off, its instrumentation is going and it's recording flight, all the flight data and stuff like this.
Yeah, it's like a cook not warming up the oven, right? Same thing.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. So, those videos at least existed at some point in time. That is absolute 100% fact. I was told that the original file name for FLIR, when it was put into the system, was associated with a video that was almost 16 or around 16 minutes long. The reason why they say that is because the number of spaces that were available inside where the actual time is put was pushed over one spot. Now, this is going to sound really stupid to a lot of people, but I look at the detail down to that level. And if someone moves a cursor over, it's just like you've typed numbers into a calculator before and you've had to back some of those numbers out. Whenever you're typing something in and you're changing a file name, you push the characters this way. On a calculator, you're pushing them that way. I'm probably reversed on your screens, but so what that essentially means is there was 4 spots available. So we know that it was over 10 minutes, but the way it came out was it's probably closer to 16 or so minutes. But either way, it doesn't matter. 10 minutes, 60 minutes, it's a lot more than what we got. So yeah.
I know that both of you probably. I don't know if you're allowed to talk about it, but what were you told during those extra minutes?
That snippet of video that we see the object go like this off this. I had that same snippet in my SipperNet email the next morning. That's why when I saw it, I was volunteering down here at the golf course. And I was carrying out a plate of food. Hey, Bob, we're watching the golf tournament, right? I had forgotten all about this. Life had gone on. And all of a sudden, CNN breaks in and ruins the 17th hole. I was like, what the fuck?
That had to be a hell of a moment.
Yeah, I was so shocked. I ran out of the building. I said, I'll see you later. I'll tell you why later. And I barely made it home.
What's on the video that we didn't see?
Well, let's cover the point that he just made about the object, darting off. Just very clearly, anyone watching this right now can do exactly what I'm going to tell you. If you have any video software that has tracking available on it, take the original FLIR video and get it off of NavAir if you want, so you know you're getting it from the actual source, and put that into your visual software, whatever it is. If you use Adobe Premiere, if you're on your phone, use Power Director or whatever, or Vegas or whatever it is. Put it in there, and then you're going to make 2 sizes of the video, just 2 sizes. One where the square is this big, and the second one where it's exactly double the size. So you're going to have one of the original video at its normal size, and then you're going to exactly double the size. So you're going to have 2. Overlay them. Overlay the 2 images and put the smaller images on the front. Okay. And then what you're going to do is start tracking the object that you see. At the moment that the zoom is switched from 1 to 2, that is when your object is basically going to look like it's shooting off to the side. So if you put your tracking software on and actually run the tracking, you will see what I see and what a lot of others have seen, is that this is a visual it basically is it's kind of a trick to the eyes, because it does look like it darted off to the side. And a lot of people that are very much more credible than I am have done measurements and said that it's going X number of miles an hour, or it's doing this or that and all kinds of things. But anyone that does video, I'm a director of photography for Discovery ID. I do true crime shows, and I do the forensic videos for some of those shows. I do a whole bunch of video work for lawyers across the country on very famous cases. Very famous cases. And so when that level of clarity is necessary, or that level of detail is going to be needed, say in a court case, I want someone to walk into court and basically say that that object did what they say it did. And the problem is that, and this is where a lot of people argue, but I don't have an argument for this. The argument is simply, I have to look at the video and only report what I see in the video. So if they gave me the video, which is exactly what I did, and I put it into my software, and I looked at it and said, wow, okay, so he went from zoom 1 to 2, which means, okay, now we're looking at a much more narrower view, and then we have a wider view through the app FLIR. And the app FLIR has 1 optic tube. It's different than other FLIRs. This is where Dave Fouch, his information was kind of getting a little wonky. The app FLIR has all of the instrumentation going through a single tube, a single light source. Everything comes through one tube. It's not split off with prisms and shot off to different instrumentations and sensors, which causes all kinds of problems. This is why the app FLIR is the only system utilized by F-18s, because it's the best one out there. I mean, there's nothing better than that. So anyway, back to what I was talking about, the video. Anyone that does video editing software, you can do this yourself. Bring it in there and track that. And you'll see that as the object is moving, as soon as the zoom starts, the tracking will maintain the object as the screen gets larger, meaning it's still tracking the object moving. It's not stopping the object. It's not slowing it down. The tracking is tracking the object. So a lot of people say when they look at it, oh, you manipulated and made it look like it was doing, no one's manipulating anything. We're just tracking it. So as the object's moving, you'll see that it moves at the exact same speed off the screen that it did when it was inside the box. So that's the only thing about that. So if I had to sit in a courtroom and testify, did that object dart off at X amount of miles an hour that might exceed known limits or whatever, I would have to say no. I'd have to say the object drifted the same way it was drifting before when he kept trying to box it. And because he was outside of the range of the app FLIR, it was very difficult to box that object. So that's my story about that part.
Kevin?
I'm not a pilot, so
yeah,
not much I can add to that.
So do you have anything else, Mike, that you want to add? I know that you're gonna.
Yeah, back to the.
That's not my area of expertise. So.
No problem. When I went forward on the information on the pilots on the X-43 project, I actually called the pilot. I just picked up the phone and said, you know what? I always like to, when I narrow down information, just like the Las Vegas shooting, the only person that I thought of that I needed to talk to was the person would have most of the information on Stephen Paddock, and that was Eric Paddock, the brother. So Eric Paddock and I, to this day, are very good friends. And the only person he talks to about this subject is me. Same thing with Tiger King. If you go in, there's only 2 people on the planet that have the information I have on Tiger King, and that I got from Carol Baskin directly. So I know Carol Baskin. I've been to where they live. I've talked to them. I see them all. Well, I don't say all the time, but I'm one of 2 people. So what I try to do is get as close to the source as possible. And in this case, I had to find the person that was flying the TicTac. And as stupid as this sounds, like, because I know I'm going to hear about it tomorrow as soon as I turn on Twitter, as soon as we turn this off, there's going to be all kinds of things. Mike says he talked to the pilot of the TicTac. Well, I did. And his name's Dana Purifoy. That was one of them. There's 2 pilots. I talked to Dana. Now, Dana may not be exactly the plane that we see, because we don't know exactly where they were, because we tried to pull the flight records, but they were in that area. And they would fly sometimes one at a time, where it wasn't like both of the F-18s were flying, but they were in that area. And then when you see, you can even pull up my video if you want. I don't know if because I don't want you to.
What's it on?
The video, it's I have to send you a link. It's on my channel. If you click on videos and just keep scrolling down till you'll see 2 fuzzy images side by side. It's below where I talk about Go Fast. It's probably about a year ago, I think, is when I put that out. I should have sent you the link ahead of time. But that video will show the Dave Fouch video of a FLIR image of an F-18, which is much closer. So the fidelity for that image is closer. But if you look carefully, you'll see. And some people say, oh, it's too fuzzy to figure out. Well, if you're a forensic specialist, you know to look for certain points to draw the patterns together to say, okay, well, this, you can tell a C-130 doesn't look like an F-18 on almost any distance. But at a certain point, some objects start looking the same if they're too far away. But these objects were close enough to where I was able to get enough information out of the video to determine that the object that Chad Underwood was chasing was a F-18. That object was not only an F-18, but it was a NASA F-18, and it was flown by one of the 2 pilots. I'm not 100% sure which one. Dana, I hope it was Dana, because then I could truly say I talked to the actual person that he has on the video. I think it was. But those were the aircraft that were in the area at that time, at that altitude. Because
does he remember getting it? Does Dan remember getting intercepted by Fast Eagle?
No, he said he's never been intercepted. He would keep in mind he was over the range of what the APFLIR could even put on as a target. The laser designator would not even work at that range. So the optics.
I thought you said David Fast Eagle intercepted him.
Oh no, Dana. No, Fast Eagle didn't intercept him. That was Chad Underwood.
Okay, I just
the video. Yeah, the video that the video that's out there that is the TicTac video, that was taken by Chad Underwood.
Right.
The name of we know the name of the pilot, but we're not going to release that. But Chad was the Wizzo. A lot of people think Chad was the pilot of that flight. He wasn't. But he's the one that got the video. He also is the one that coined the name TicTac, from what I've been told. And so that's where the name came from. I have a funny video that says otherwise, which is just a kind of a satire film. But anyway, so when talking to Dana, I asked him, I said point blank, so what were the altitudes that you guys were flying at? And this is before I told him all of the other information. And he said, we normally fly around 20,000 feet. That was our average cruising, because that was where the F-18s were very efficient. And so I said, okay. And about what speed? 250 knots. That's the video right there. So take a look. I don't know if you can hear it, but.
No, I still want to clarify something that you had said.
Yeah.
What did Fast Eagle intercept? You're saying he intercepted.
We'll come back to that. Let me talk about the video that is on the screen right now. So on this video here is the original TicTac video. So what you're looking at is a slightly enlarged version, because you can see that I've enlarged it here without enhancing the video. This is the standard video. On the right side now, I slow it down, and you can see that as it changes to white hot, you'll see that the objects have the same spire sticking out, and the odds of me getting two videos of a plane banking left are pretty hard. But both of these objects are of an object that's banking to the left, making a slight turn to the left, which matches the data that I come up with. I want to put this in a simulator. So, and if you look at that, if you look at where the engine area is on both of the aircraft, you see how that little triangle comes down, triangle off to the right. It's almost the same, except one's in white hot, one's in black hot. I should have inverted the other one as well, so it looked closer, but I didn't want to change the original video and someone say, wow, yeah, you changed the video. But yeah, that's yeah, if you want to play that back and you guys tell me if you guys think they look similar based on your research and stuff like that and looking at these things. But because some people, they look at this and they quickly dismiss it because they don't analyze it as close as probably we would before we start saying something is something. But yeah, I've looked at this extensively and comparing it with over 300 other videos. This was almost a match. Like, just freeze it right there. Just hit pause.
Hang on one second. Let me bring it back.
So there you go. That's fine. When you look back and forth, even the artifacts that are in this. Now, if you look at this too, you notice that the object on the left, which is supposedly the TicTac, doesn't really even look like the TicTac. And the reason probably for that is that while Chad's angle of view was changing, so was the other craft. So as two craft are heading towards each other or away from each other, and this is going to be a terrible analogy, everybody's going to laugh at this one. But as your aircraft moves, everything that it looks like changes. So you're going to see like all of this, and then it's going to get really small and what have you. But these two aircraft were at about the same altitude. They were both about 20,000 feet. They were both moving at about 250 knots. There was no way that I had no way of measuring any other speed on the TicTac other than 250 knots. That's the only speed I could ever come up with. And I'm nothing against Knuth or anyone else. I don't know how they got those measurements to get any other speed. All I can say is I've got more experience than they do at looking at this type of stuff. A lot more experience. And I can tell you that based on my opinion and my professional opinion, and I would sit on a witness stand and tell the same thing to the court and be able to prove it, that this object that everyone has been told darted off to the left at a ridiculous speed never did any such thing, because when you analyze the video, and anyone that does video and has tracking, you can see it. It just didn't do it. It just doesn't hold up. And I hate saying that, because that story has been pushed so much that so many people believe it that they want to defend it till the end of time. And it's just, at some point, you have to look at it yourself and go buy your own software. I'll show you I'll teach you how to track it for free, and how to look at objects in a 3-dimensional space and track their movements in a 3-dimensional space from a 2-dimensional image. It can be done. It's difficult, but it can be done. And every way I've cut this thing, I do not see that object going. And you'll see it if you even split the screen in half and then let one continue moving on, you'll see it just literally just goes off the screen. It doesn't do anything other than the zoom part.
I just don't. I don't see how those aircraft could have been our piece of sky and we didn't see the transponders. And
they weren't in your piece of sky. That's the thing. This object, look at the range number on there. The range says 99.9. That means the object is well over the range of the FLIR. And look how fuzzy that image on the left is, and how clear it is on the right.
It's in my spy range.
It's definitely in your spy range.
If I'm in Whiskey 291 and I'm tracking objects, I got all my aircraft, and my aircraft are intercepting NASA flights. I'm gonna know they're intercepting NASA flights.
No, this wasn't in 291. That's the problem. This was not in 291. No, this was just north of that.
Coast of LA. I can see a long freaking way with
no. What I'm saying is that this was not in your specific area, because otherwise you would have commercial aircraft in your area too if it went all the way up to LA.
I was tracking commercial aircraft.
Of course you are. So what I'm saying is you were tracking that, but what I'm saying is this object was not in.
Answer where this was in. I intercepted stuff right off the coast of Catalina Island. Where was the thing you're talking about?
Yeah, exactly. Where was it? Well, according to Underwood, it was north of the cap point. So that puts it on radar. Yeah, you saw it. I'm not saying you didn't see it. No, it doesn't have a transponder. He didn't. They don't have to fly with their.
That shit. It would have had a transponder.
I get that. What I'm saying is that this object that we're seeing here, if it was his F-18, he says sometimes they don't fly with their transponders on. They'll come in and go out. And I'm like going, this is crazy. I've never heard of that before. I said the same thing. He said that when they're flying right next. Hold on, hear me out, and understand what I'm saying. When they're flying right next to the B-52, and they're flying and they're practicing this run, they are not allowed to have all of their instrumentation turned on, because it would interfere with the X-43. They are told to turn all that off before the Pegasus launches.
Where was the X-43? Was it by Catalina Island?
It was it was past there a little bit. It was past there when it was actually launched, but they were flying these patterns.
X-43 off the coast of LA.
It was launched off the coast of LA. They flew a pattern to get up to the 40,000 feet. It was launched from 40,000 feet, and that takes a long time for a B-52 to get to that.
Then how come my transponders didn't interfere with it? I'm talking about a common transponder that it's not secret. It's not nothing. It just lets me know there's an object and it's us.
No, I get that. I'm not.
Mode 4 is friendly. I could go through all the different modes. I would have at least been seeing the mode 3. I wasn't seeing the mode 3.
If let's say 3 military helicopters are flying right next to each other, how many have their transponders on? 1.
Where are we?
Anywhere.
Are we in?
If you have 3, if you have 3 helicopters
off the enemy coast, then yeah, maybe, but not off the coast of.
That's what I'm saying.
Airport. Off the coast of an international airport, you got San Diego Airport, you got LAX. You better have a transponder on.
I agree 100%. This was news to me too, Kevin. This isn't me arguing it. this was information that was given to me.
I'll talk to them because they're wrong.
Yeah, I argued that point too. But when they explained it to me, I said, okay, well, that kind of makes sense because the 3 helicopter rule. You got 3 helicopters flying together.
You're going to get in trouble for flying in my goddamn airspace with no transponder on and almost running into my fucking aircraft. That's why I'm so fucking hot.
Well, this aircraft was well over 40 miles away.
Issue. You said there was no safety violation. Well, there it is.
No, I'm saying on the video of Chad's video of that aircraft's over 40 miles away. So there's no safety issue with that one. It's not in your. It's not necessarily.
My aircraft can traverse 40 miles in another aircraft coming at them.
Oh no, I get that, but this, the way Dan explained his flight path was he would not cross into your designated area, even though your designated area would be like the whole. I mean, if you took whiskey, the whole thing, then yeah, it's everything off the coast of Southern California. I get that, but everyone is given a piece of that section. That's why I sent you the layout of it, where you can see the cuts that they have inside there, where certain training is done in certain areas, and you don't really cross into other areas because somebody might be doing some different tests or something, whatever, that same day, because that's how that works. But this is where I have a contention too. Is like, okay, we're looking at the same thing, and I'm being told.
And Mike, you and I will get together with who's telling you BS, and we'll bring an actual pilot in the room. There's actually flown in with an A-18, and we'll have a 5-person showdown. Because what they told you.
Well, I'm not here for a showdown. I'm not here for that. I will give you the information that was given to me, and that I have gathered, and then you guys do whatever you want with it.
Your suspicions were correct. You were right, because whoever told you that is either telling you BS or they've been told to tell you BS.
Hey, you didn't even know I was calling him.
There's dark players.
As far as Dana, Dana had no idea.
There's dark players here too. You have to know that by now. Not everybody's on our side with this shit. Just so you know.
I 100%. I agree, and I'm only on the side of trying. The thing is if I'm going to believe in something, I want to make certain that what I'm being told, because I was getting mad with the Go Fast video. That was the video that really just kind of changed my whole insight on how to look at these things. Because we were told it was low, we were told it was fast, and we were near the surface of the water. I'm sitting there going, and I calculated it out with just the information that's on the screen. I'm going, okay, I'm being told line BS for some reason. I don't know why, but that was just Go Fast. I don't mean all three videos. Each video it stands on its own. They're not related to each other at all. And in your case, on November 4th, November 14th, 2004, my personal belief, my professional belief, is that there are 3 different events that have been described over videos and over people talking and stuff like this, that somehow that all 3 of those events have been conflated into one thing, that they're all the same thing. My opinion is we are looking at 3 separate events. I don't believe what Chad Underwood filmed is the same thing that David Fravor was on top of. My personal belief is I don't think that's the case. But the Cat Point story throws a monkey wrench in that, because if that aircraft was tracked going from point A to point B, and point B being the Cat Point, then that throws a monkey wrench into this. And so I have to look at that and go, okay, well, there is that, but I don't have the data for that, so I can't refute it. I just have to go by what I see, and when I do the research, because I actually go to these places, and I go there, I talk to people, I try to get, inside the buildings and whatever, which got me in a little bit of trouble, but so just a little bit. But it is fun. The video of me at Skunk Works is actually on my channel too, where I went to Skunk Works, and I've been there probably 15 times. I went there one of the earlier times for the fusion stuff, and then and some other. But if anyone, the mystery of Plant 42, which is kind of unique, is that Plant 42 is a full manufacturing facility, which includes Skunk Works and other manufacturers inside the Palmdale International Airport. Okay, so it shares the same runway. So when secret aircraft take off, they're taking off from the Palmdale Airport and going to Edwards Air Force Base or going to Area 51 or going to Nellis, whatever their training area is going to be. And that's just the people in that area are used to this stuff. And so if you ever want to visit there, I'll love to take you on a little tour. I'll show you an SR-71 and a couple of aircraft that are floating around that area, which is kind of cool to get next to and actually touch. Kind of neat.
So Kevin, what do you think? I mean, you've obviously seen this, and your opinion is that Mike in particular was probably fed a line of shit. I don't know. I just, the only thing that I want to come out of this is at least more discussion at minimum, but also the truth. And I think, Kevin, you have been affected by what occurred, and if it finds out and it comes to find out that there was people messing around in the area that you weren't told of for whatever reason, what's your response to that? What do you, not necessarily to Mike, but just in general, what is that? Lawsuit. What does that look like to you, Kevin?
Federal court.
Really?
I agree 100%. I will get you as much information as you need, whatever I have, and you take whatever it is you need out of it and verify it, vet it, whatever you got to do. If it helps you, use it.
And you boys, you know what? If I did get a financial judgment, you know what I'd do with it? I'd
put it back into research.
I donate to research, UAP research.
That says volumes about your character.
I might take 10% because I'm married now and I have obligations. But the rest of it goes to research.
And I can relate to that because since 2017, every investigation I've done, which includes the Las Vegas shooting, Tiger King, this or whatever, and a whole bunch of other ones, I have done it no charge. I say that because if this was a test, why did they let this thing metastasize out for 20 years? Well, it
ruined my career.
Yeah, I know, and trust me, I've watched you on a couple podcasts, and I know what this means to you, and I want to get you as much information as possible so that and maybe we can work together on some of these investigations, and because there's some of these where I went into a block wall, and I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll come back to that.
There's a lot of stuff on the that you haven't heard yet.
Okay. Yeah. I'll give you what I got, some of which I haven't.
It has to do with quantum and some of the stuff David Bohm and stuff Jack Sarfati's involved with. There's been some stuff happened to me that's not really explainable well after this event, like serendipity stuff you would not believe.
And I will share some things with you.
How much time we got left anyway?
I mean,
I can go all night. That's what
all right. Here we go. I'll take just a few minutes and I'll just summarize what happened.
Sure.
This all went down. I was at Commander Verapec. I transferred off to Princeton and was going to go work for the Admiral. And I was up for Master Chief my first time. And that year, for whatever reason, they only made one. And it was my buddy on the East Coast. And I congratulated him. And I had a good job offer in DOD. And I was facing going back to sea again. That would have been my sixth ride on a ship, not counting Allied. I had spent a lot of time at sea, gentlemen and ladies. And so I decided to punch. I got out, went off and was a contractor. And I tried to tell people what had happened, got laughed at, cartoons, the whole 9 yards. People asked me what I'd been smoking, you name it. I got frustrated, went home, wrote the book, published it in Library of Congress and said, F it. And I decided to go back to college and got my master's degree. And during that time, it was a little too easy for me. So I had free time. So I started researching the family mining claim back here in the Kalmiopsis Wilderness. And I said, wait a minute, there's a geological mystery here and I'm interested. So I ended up back in the wilderness, had lost everything, all my houses, my wife, all my savings. But what I found, oh my God, you're not going to believe it. My grandpa had told me before he passed, he said, Kevin, you don't understand. We weren't pulling gold nuggets out of that place. The gold we were getting was so fine. It looked like snowflakes when you looked at it in the microscope. So I was thinking to myself, that doesn't make sense. It looked like ball bearings. So it has to be coming from the surface. So I started doing research. I started pulling research. And it turns out our 160-acre mining claim in the Kalmiopsis Wilderness actually sits on 157-million-year-old former sea bottom from the Pacific spreading arcs.
Mm-hmm.
And it's full of minerals, absolutely jam-packed full of minerals. It's a ophiolite, and basically because that mineral is it's laid down by hydrothermal vents, and it's got chromium, and it's got aluminum, and it's got zinc, and it's got silica all the way down into the earth, 8 to 10 kilometers as far as we know. And it's super heavy ground. I got samples all over the house. Normally that type of earth gets subducted under continental plates because of that, sinks under the granite. But when it does get stuck, it's called an ophiolite. We have the Josephine ophiolite. I was able to put this all together, and that's the source of our gold. And there's a whole bunch of it here like that. There's a gold mining area. So when the Deer Moon
exactly
mission,
is your address? Just kidding.
Yeah, when the Deer Moon mission came available, I sent Musk all my research.
Right.
And I said, this is why I want to go. You had to tell him why you wanted to go. 4 days later, NASA flight. I can show you that maybe I already have. All around the state of Oregon. They did DDoS around my mining claim.
Yeah.
It took off. Yep. And I jump in the house, turned out to be a NASA flight on a geodetic mission. Someone had checked out my research. Yeah. And there's been several since then. You know, the beautiful thing,
you can FOIA that. You can actually get a lot of the data that they got, a lot of the imagery, because they're looking for, they'll shoot that in several different wavelengths to find out what reflects back. That's how they find oil from space.
Check the beautiful part about this whole thing. Ain't even about the gold for me. There's enough gold down below my feet to pay off our national debt. There's that much, yeah. Because I told Musk, he's got that boring technology, right? So I told him, I said, we don't have to even touch the top of the ground. Just bore it from under the ground and get out the good stuff and go home. But the beautiful thing is, and I put 2 and 2 because they've flown all kinds of missions. They discovered new hydrothermal vents off the coast of Washington and a brand new tsunami threat they didn't know was there.
Right.
And it all happened because I ended up in the wilderness. Now that is serendipity like you cannot believe. What? Really? And so what happened was winter chased me off the mountain. My cousin and I and my little dog, Red Dog, no longer with me, ended up in a little trailer waiting for a house. I had an income. I was retired, right? But I was houseless. Didn't know what the hell I was going to do. He ran into someone else because they were a licensed marijuana grower. I wasn't into that shit, you know. So I come into town, order breakfast, and there was nothing. And all of a sudden I finished, and all of a sudden there was this house for sale. Right? Just like that. Exactly what I was looking for. And the weird thing is, Mike, I knew the house. I'd been there a lot of times when I was a kid. So I was in escrow in 4 days, $20,000, $50,000 carried by the owner. Dream deal, right? I walk into the house and the ashes are on the fireplace mantle. The old person that I think the lady that used to like me.
Wow.
I don't know. I was too small. But everyone had told me that, hey, Kevin, are you sure this house used to be a slave owner's? The slaves used to live in this house. And I was like, what? There was no slave. And they were like, yeah, there was. You just didn't know. It was a long time ago. But they said it's haunted. Are you sure? And I said, yeah. And you know what? I was never messed with at all. In fact, that house brought me a lot of luck.
Yeah.
I was down at the golf course and all this thing broke off, and I met an old gentleman. He served in World War II, and he was on a submarine when the Japanese attacked. And he had PTSD. He had to do rescue and assistance. When the submarine came back, he wasn't there. He was on a submarine. But he knew all the places, and a lot of his friends got wiped out. And he was affected greatly for it. So I came over to this house all the time and helped him. And he had told his family, hey, when I go, give Kevin a chance to buy this house. And the realtor contacted us. I can't do that. This is a way more expensive. He said, but you can, Kevin. I got someone's willing to buy your house for $170,000. This was 2 years later. In 2 years, it gone up to 100,000. And to the penny, I had enough money to buy this house. Now, you
Was that around 2008?
That's serendipity, right? And there's a lot more too. There's a lot more.
Yeah, I think you and I are going to find that we have a lot of experiences and stories that are going to be synonymous. I don't want to say them here because there's a couple of them that as soon as you start saying something, I start thinking of my experiences too. Even as a lot of people say, but you're an atheist, you don't believe in all this shit. So no, I'm an atheist. I just don't believe in gods. But trust me, I believe in the paranormal and a lot of the weird stuff that goes on. I don't necessarily believe in dino beavers and stuff like that. But I definitely believe there's something else going on here because I had so much stuff happening to me in 2009 that I actually walked around with a camera almost 24/7. So I actually filmed some of it because I didn't even believe it was happening. I'm like, okay, wait a second. And so got that. And, but anyway, I'll tell you about that off of the show here. And I think we're going to find, we probably have a lot of experience that are very similar because I know we've already touched on a few previously to this. So there's Giddy.
It's still
gentlemen,
happening.
I think we're coming up on it, but I think that this was a healthy discussion. And, Mike, I think I'd like to see more of what you have as you put your documentary together. And Kevin, I know that you guys, obviously I don't need to connect you guys. You're connected on the back end anyway. So I don't need to keep that. You guys are welcome to.
I apologize for getting upset, but
no,
I feel today like I did then. If someone had put my aircraft and my people in harm's way without letting me know when I could have prevented it, I would have been cool with that. Hey, there's another exercise happening on top of just be aware there's balloons out here. There's a X-43 Bravo getting launched and all that stuff. And if there was, I don't remember.
That may be part of the reason why they came and took the data, because there may have been some other things going on they didn't want anybody to know about. And the best way to do it is to get rid of the evidence. And guess what they did? They came out there and got rid of it.
It was very highly unusual. And I don't think it's legal, but whatever.
I don't think I've ever heard or seen any experience. I know that Air Force has gone on to Navy ships before and done some things. I've never seen anything like this. And I don't doubt that story at all. In fact, I believe 100%.
Mike, why would they do that for an X-43 Bravo launch? It doesn't.
I think because sense. There was something else that was,
like you said, it was public. It was public-private. I mean, public secret.
Yeah, there was. It's funny. It was public secret because they did announce that it was going to happen and what they were doing, but they didn't exactly have the public come see it because it was obviously offshore. It went for 8.5 seconds or went for 850 miles in less than 10 seconds. So one of those tracks I believe you got was probably part of that, but I'm in no way, and anyone that takes my words and flips them around and says, Mike says that the TicTac was the X-43, I'm sure someone's going to do it, but no, that's not what I'm saying at all.
That's not what you're saying.
Yeah, but there is some other.
What you are saying is the TicTacs were us supporting the X-43 Bravo experiment.
I don't know if there's any there's obviously something that went on between, because when you went up to the captain and basically, or the admiral, and said that this is what's going on, and they just like, yeah, okay, whatever. You got that lackadaisical response. I'm sure that upset you then, that they didn't seem to care. So I think that there was something going on at a different level that only those people at that level would know about. What that was, or
they would have told me that though. I mean,
yeah, they would.
There's a way to let people, hey, it's above your crate, it's, you don't have need to know is the way we would say it. Okay, fine, I don't have need to know. That was
at least if they would have told you that would have made sense. They said, well, you don't have a need to know, and then that's an answer.
We do it all the time. It's normal standard operating procedure.
Yeah, I've been in that many times. I've been in one, TSSCI program, and I'm looking at something else. I'm like, well, I guess I'm not supposed to know what that is. So I get it.
And you know what? Half the time you don't want to know anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Because the less you know, the more focus you can get on, doing what you got to do and get out. My problem is I'm ultra curious, so I end up like going, wow, that was kind of cool. I wonder what that was, and my mind will not get off of it. And that's kind of what happened here. For 7 years, I've been researching this thing down to whatever I can do and spending all my money. I went through $268,000 of just my own money, just since, not for this, but when you combine all the other stuff, I blew through my retirement and all this other stuff. So I when you say you got down to the point where you're looking at last dollars, I've been there, done that. So luckily didn't stay there, but oh my God, it got close a few times. But yeah, yeah.
And again, I apologize for the outburst, but it was controlled in the sense that I want people to know that I'm in terms of the safety violations in my mind that occurred, I'm just as upset today as I was then.
Yeah.
It hasn't
and you have a right to be.
Because that was fucked up to do that, to step on my exercise to the point I had to cancel it and potentially putting my airplanes in danger.
Yeah. And I'll talk to you offline, but I'll give you what the other side of that was, so you can make an assessment. And then and if you tell me to go forward with what I'd already started, I will. And in other words, I'm going to give you the response to your argument. So you'll already know what that response is. And then you tell me what to do with it, and I'll research it further.
Yeah, but Mike, well, here's the bottom line on it, is I still should have known that of the existence of what was going on, even though it's beyond your pay grade and you need to know, but just be aware it's happening so you don't run into the balloons.
Exactly. Well, yeah.
They didn't do that.
The thing that when the fidelity of your radar was increasing, you are now all of a sudden seeing them. The manufacturer who actually came to your ship, now that cat's out of the bag. That should have been explained.
I already know.
My bad.
I know the
guys. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. So when they came out there and they were going through. Okay, so you know you know which people I'm talking about. Yeah. So when that occurred, it's not like they came in and they gave you this nice big old briefing about, hey, we upgraded your radar and here's the new stuff it can do and here's the new things it can see. They didn't do that, but it would have been nice if they would have done that. That way you guys wouldn't have been, looking at some of these things and having to go through all these extra steps, turning off the system, you're wiping stuff and just going back in, and then only to have someone come in after all this is said and done and take everything away. I mean, not cool. Not cool. And the question is, why did they come do that? Of course,
just for an X-43 Bravo launch. You know how many radars were tracking that thing? A lot more than just mine.
A lot.
You know how many? Yeah.
Well, yours was the best radar in the area. Yours was the best in the area at that time. You were number one. Number two would have been Vandenberg. Number three would have been Edwards.
And then after that, LAX and San Diego. Sure.
Yeah. And if anybody wants to, if you take Google Earth and you zoom in on San Nicolas Island and even San Clemente, but if you zoom in and start just poking, just get Google Earth open and take a look at San Nicolas Island and zoom in and just explore it a little bit. And tell me what you find. I think you're going to see some really cool stuff. So do that.
The ocean bottom's interesting around there too, by the way.
Yeah, the ocean bottom. Remember, they just so you know, they actually changed. Google Earth has actually redefined the bottom of the ocean off the point of Malibu. Mm-hmm. There's a reason for that, but that has just happened. So if you take Google Earth, especially the professional version, and you backdate the imagery of that area, you'll see that all of a sudden there's this new landmass there that wasn't ever there before. So what did they do that for? Who told them to do that? I can show you something that I did. If you go to everyone can do this, write this down. 11375 Fitzpatrick Drive, Rancho Cucamonga, California. So 11375 Fitzpatrick Drive, Rancho Cucamonga, California. You'll see that's my house. I bought it in 2006 for $710,000. And it went up from there or whatever. But the realtor decided to mess with me on the house instead of actually having a photographer come in and take photographs of it when I was going to sell it. He decided to just use Google Earth. So when you go there, you're going to see how someone can manipulate Google Earth to actually change what your own home looks like. So I did that. And you can actually pull it up if you want.
Yeah, I'm trying. All I'm getting is Redfin. So I'm not on Google Earth. I don't have.
Oh, good. Just go to Google Maps. Just Google Maps. Yeah, and then look at Street View. Yeah, once you put in the address, do Street View, and you'll take a look at it, and you'll see all the other houses you can see, but somehow this house is fuzzy. This house is basically taken off the whole market, so to speak. So I decided to do that to mess with the realtor. But the point being is that Google Earth and the people at Google that do all the imagery actually have to get permission in some cases to do imagery over certain areas. Maxar, which is I gotta be careful how I say this. NGA, NRO, and all of the sources that utilize. Yeah, just go to Street View on the bottom of the corner. That road runs into my house.
This one here.
So yeah, if you drove straight down that road, it T-bones right into my house. So down at the bottom is my house. Okay, so from the top you can see it. Now go to Street View. Yeah, the one on the left there.
Where is I don't. You can tell I don't use this very often. Where is Street
Yeah,
View?
just double click on the. Are you on Google Maps?
Yeah.
Google.
Yeah.
Okay, double click and go down to the Street View. Normally it'll show the Street View icon somewhere. It'll just show. Just keep zooming in. It should go to it. Just keep zooming in. It should go to Street View.
It's not letting me go any further. So let me see here.
That doesn't look like Google. There it is. Hey, look at that. So
Houses.
yeah, I can't see it. Now look at any other house. Everything else is nice. You can just scroll around. Hey, even when you look down the street.
Someone eats beans at that house. Big fog cloud.
Yeah. So what I could do is tell people that, hey, my house, if I wanted to have some fun, I could say, you can even pull up my old address. I had so much electronic equipment and UFOs were visiting me, and I had, tall alien, tall grays. I had all kinds of stuff. And I could say, here's how I can prove it. Look at Google Maps. Look at that. I can't manipulate that, but I did. And so when you look around, if someone utilizes some trick like this, now you know, oh yeah, Mike told us about this, a while back. So yeah, the only house on the whole street is mine. Kind of cool, huh? So, but also off the coast of Malibu is now a new landmass that apparently didn't exist from before. And I would really like to know where those measurements came in. So the next time I log into my beta account, I'm going to scoot on over there and I'm going to see exactly what date that log was changed for those imageries. So if anyone is looking at satellite images, I can probably help you disseminate or find certain things. And the Las Vegas shooting, I'll give you a case in point. The lawyers needed to know the lawyers wanted to go in and take pictures of the whole area so they can make a 3D map of the scene. I told Kathleen Lombardo, which was the lead attorney at the time, I told her, I said, you don't need to do that. I said, I'm going to give you a present. So I was able to log into my old account and was able to pull an image of the entire area. And I'll send you that image as well of the Las Vegas the next morning. And they needed to know where vehicles were, where the stage stuff was, and all of that. So I got that image for her and I said, this is a satellite image of the area the next morning. You don't have to pay 15 photographers thousands and thousands of dollars. Here you go for free. And gave her that image. So there's a lot that can be done. What I'd like to do, here's something I'd like to do, and Kevin, you might be able to piece this together with me on this. I would like to take every UFO sighting that's ever been seen at the times that that the sighting is done, if we have the dates and times and stuff like this, and go back and look through old imagery of that area and try to see if we can pick up either the object or some anomaly of some distortion or anything that can help verify that actually took place. One of the classic ones, I was looking at the Chicago, sighting. I was trying to go back and get some satellite imagery of that area. We just have to hope that a satellite was over at that time that was picking up. But there are ways to get other images and other times and dates and stuff like this, because there's a large catalog of that right now that's somewhere in Bluffdale, Utah. So yeah, there's that.
Hey, Mike,
so Kevin, final thoughts?
I want to hook you up with Steve Castle.
Okay.
You know who
Kevin,
he is?
final thoughts? What do you think?
Sounds good.
What do you think of this?
Just a quick shout out. I'm working on 2 books,
Mhm.
and Jack Sarfati is doing the intro for the first one. It's called TicTac Redemption, and it's pretty much chronicles my path through this whole thing. And the other one is called our Quantum Souls, and my theories based on David Bohm's work and a bunch of other researchers on my theory that our soul persists. We don't actually die. Yeah.
And Mike, anything else to add here at the end, sir?
And I'm going to a conference next month.
That's right.
Arkansas
Yes.
UFO conference. You guys want to go? Show up. I'll send you information. There'll be like 500 or 600 people there. It's one of the big ones. Be a lot of fun. Yep.
I'll be coming out to California in 2 weeks. I'll be in Louisiana for a little bit. Then I go to California. Then I circle back, and I go to another place, and then I come back here.
I'm gonna hook you up with a big time oceanographer. He's got a submersible. Okay. He's interested in that same anomaly you're talking about.
Okay. Yep. Yeah, definitely. I'd love to get. I can give him the data on that as to the log changes and to when all that occurred in the depths that they manipulated. Because now it's something totally different.
Yeah, tomorrow I got home duties when we get off here.
Yeah, sounds good. Sounds like it.
Gentlemen, thank you so much. It's been wild. I think that there's a lot more to keep looking at, and yeah.
Did we disappoint, Steve?
No, I think we may have rewritten some things here tonight, and I'm just kind of like, I want to see I want to see all the evidence and stuff, Mike. I definitely want to see all that come out, because I think that once you present all that, and maybe we can come back to this afterwards. Me and Kevin can sit down again.
Well, I'll send you guys what I have, a lot of it, the raw data, like tonight. So you'll have it exactly. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that data, and I'm in the midst of converting it into a documentary, so it makes sense. It's just like when everybody hears this story, we all, in our minds, after watching the Nimitz Encounters by Dave Beatty, which is absolutely a phenomenal thing to see, because he puts it all in perspective, and he's gone back and added some stuff to it whenever new information came out, which is perfect. That to me means volumes about this guy. And Kevin is in that. That's the first time I was really introduced to Kevin, was watching the Nimitz Encounters by Dave Beatty. So definitely anyone should watch that if you haven't. I mean, I don't know of anybody that we talk to that hasn't seen it, but somebody out there might not have. But definitely do that.
All right, good deal. And so also, I just want to remind everyone now, we've got about 3,000 people watching real time. To download the Phenom app, again, you can go to, I'll show it to you one more time, because I think it's really important. It's phenom.earth, or I should say,
by the way, my book proceeds are going to research too, not for me.
Outstanding.
So, okay.
So download the Phenom app. It allows you to real-time video and put all this information into this app, and you'll be able to put your UFO, UAP stuff right there and be able to track it, have real-time data, and it'll be able to be shared. And then on the back end, that data is also cross-referenced against both commercial air traffic as well as military air traffic. So the guy, the guy that has put this together has done a phenomenal job. Shout out to Logan.
No pun intended.
Yeah, no pun intended. So when you get a chance, guys, if you can get onto the Phenom app, it's on Apple. It's also on the Google store. So definitely you want to get in on that. So gentlemen, thank you so much. It has been incredibly interesting. I kind of have to sit back and think now, because there's so much going through my brain. But yeah. So, gentlemen, any further goodbyes, or are we good to go?
I just want to say something really quick. A lot of times, the way I explain things, because I get so matter of factly and I don't include the human element, it's because of all of the stuff I've had to do. A lot of times when I'm brought into court, or if I'm doing forensics on whatever video or pictures, or if I'm actually on location, these things are entrenched in me the way I'm trained to do something, or the way I've trained myself to do something, to only look and focus on exactly what I'm looking at and not take in all this other stuff. The problem with that is when you do that, a lot of people misinterpret how I'm trying to interpret what I'm seeing as me saying the pilots are lying, or Kevin's lying, or someone's lying. And that's not the case at all. So I try to make that clear, that I don't think anyone in this situation or this event has lied. I think sometimes we may think something later, and then things may change a little bit, or memories or whatever, but that's not even what I report on. I only report on the actual tangible physical evidence. You don't hear me going on talking about Fravor or Kevin or anyone. I don't talk about the people. I talk about the videos. So just want to make that clear. And love what you do. Thank you, Stephen. I appreciate that. Kevin, I truly appreciate you taking the time to do this. It means the world to me. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate that. And I'll contact you offline with the other stuff.
Right on. Ciao, guys.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Yep.
Have a great night.
Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.